Spring practice is underway across college football. Unfortunately, underway at Michigan because they have a quarterback injury there. We will get to that in just a second. And big quarterback news at LSU as well. Welcome into the Voice of College Football on a Sunday night, 10:15 Eastern Time. Appreciate everybody being here to talk college football with all of you. And again, we've got the phone lines open, and we'll take any of your calls concerning anything in college football. Hope you've been able to catch our spring previews. Oh my goodness. Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia's coming, Tennessee, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Who have we not hit? Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, USC's coming, Oregon, Notre Dame's coming. Got a record scheduled on Monday with Brian Driscoll of Irish Breakdown. And also we've got Carter coming on. Power Hour with Carter from LSU and the big news concerning one Jaden Daniels. So we'll start right there. LSU with a huge addition to the Brian Kelly first-year roster with Jaden Daniels. I was just going to produce a video speculating where Jaden Daniels would fit in best. Brian Kelly beat me to the punch. Brian Kelly and LSU bring in Jaden Daniels, tremendous dual threat quarterback, of course, from Arizona State. Wanted to leave a bad situation out there and come east and go south and compete for the quarterback job with Miles Brennan. Miles Brennan put his name in the transfer portal earlier this offseason, and then Max Johnson left LSU to go to Texas A&M after he led the game-winning drive and threw the game-winning touchdown pass in the final game of the regular season against Texas A&M. Max Johnson, the lefty, who threw 27 touchdowns with only 6 picks this past year, replacing Zach Calzada at Texas A&M, who left to go to Auburn. So Max Johnson leaves to go to Texas A&M, leaves the opening for Miles Brennan, takes his name out of the transfer portal to go back to LSU and seemingly have a clear path to the quarterback position after Miles Brennan missed last season, but in 2020 threw 12 touchdowns in the team's first 3 games before he got injured. And now Miles Brennan has some serious and stiff competition with Jaden Daniels, who had a remarkable freshman campaign with 17 touchdowns and 2 picks. Leveled off last season, 10 touchdowns and 10 picks. Jaden Daniels at LSU. We'll get your reaction to that. And then the big news out of Michigan. It's not been substantiated, and it's not been reported by the school or the football program. I received a text from someone this afternoon who knows the Michigan football program rather well. And they communicated to me that J.J. McCarthy suffered a serious injury. I did not have time to check it out, but it's showing up online as a rumor. But it's enough of a rumor that several sites are reporting it. And I think the school and the football program just have not handled the situation and reported it as of yet, probably before they know exactly what the prognosis is. I'll go to FanSided. You can pick your site here. And again, I was informed of this earlier today. It was about 2 or 3 in the afternoon that J.J. McCarthy was hurt at practice. So our situation right here, according to this is FanSided, Chris Peterson, one of the biggest storylines surrounding Michigan football this spring, the quarterback position and expected battle between J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara, so forth and so on. Okay. Big Ten champs Barstool reported this afternoon. This was at 3:01, so this is right about the time that somebody sent me a text. Inside sources are saying J.J. McCarthy has injured his throwing shoulder and will need surgery. He's expected to be back in July. So we're going to take that as a official report to a certain extent because it's been backed up a number of times elsewhere on social media and online, although we also took the sources that were citing Jim Harbaugh going to the Minnesota Vikings as that being a done deal. But this being an injury, you would think that this is a situation where J.J. McCarthy must have hurt his shoulder in practice or hurt it outside of practice. Probably didn't hurt it outside of practice, but maybe it showed up in practice. Maybe it wasn't a one-time incident, one play, but it showed up at practice. And then there are obviously all sorts of people at practice. Even though these practices are closed to the media and to fans, there are so many people there. Everybody's got a bundle of information, a bundle of technology in their pockets. And so all it takes is one individual to leak that information and contact somebody, and then it's out. Chris Ballas of the Wolverine reported something on the subject. So again, it's J.J. McCarthy with apparent shoulder injury, out until July, will require surgery. How is that going to affect the quarterback battle? I don't think it's going to affect it to a huge degree if J.J. McCarthy is able to come back in July and be up to full speed at that point. When it says he's going to come back in July, does that mean he's going to just start throwing the football in July? Considering it's a shoulder and considering it's surgery, that's probably the case. We are in early March. Kind of sounds like it. That would be my take from that, but we don't know. When it says back in early July, then again, is that just back to just starting to exercise the shoulder and toss a football around? Then we're looking into the season. But if that means back ready to play, ready to go, then that's another matter because J.J. McCarthy's been in the offense. He ran the offense for meaningful snaps against good teams throughout the season last year. And if he makes it back by August camp, then you've got McNamara versus McCarthy. And yeah, it holds him back not going to spring practice and not getting those reps in and not being able to throw a football for 4 months plus. But if he can compete the final, let's say, 3 weeks of August camp, then I would still consider it to be a competition, although McNamara would have a huge advantage. Jaden Daniels against Miles Brennan. I got to think Daniels is a bit of a favorite there, but again, don't discard that he went 10 touchdowns and 10 picks and didn't look great last year versus Miles Brennan throwing 12 touchdowns in 3 games. And that's really his sample size for the most part 2 years ago. So Jaden Daniels, you're going to go with maybe a 70 or 75% chance of winning that job. All right. Want to remind everyone before we take this call that we've got our Discord running. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and we will get you your Discord link. So sign up there. We're on Discord. I jump on every day just to check out who's saying what and to join the conversation. Let's start up this particular conversation right now, right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up to the man that gives college football its voice, the great Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
David, I am doing well. How are you?
Very, very well. Just here to chime in on the Team Up North quarterback situation. First of all, I wanted to start with, with McCarthy. Did you find it interesting the way they utilized him last year? As far as, was it me or was there a lot of just run packages in there for him last year?
Well, there were. That's more of his skill set than McNamara's. And I think that's pretty much how any quarterback is handled as a backup that gets him playing time, don't you think? Even if they're not noticeably, because they're not in the flow of the game, you don't want to risk. It's just not an unfair. It's an unfair situation to have them throw most of the time. So I don't think that's uncommon. And then on top of that, McCarthy is more of a running quarterback than McNamara.
Yeah. Well, he's got good wheels. By the way, it reminds you a little bit of the Tebow situation in 2006 with him and Chris Leak at Florida a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I could go with that. Leak, a pedestrian type quarterback, good quarterback, not a great quarterback, and certainly did not have an NFL future. Maybe Cade McNamara is in that same mold. Can run the offense, knows what he's doing, smart quarterback, smart player, has the respect of his teammates. Yeah, Chris Leak, Cade McNamara, sure. And then J.J. McCarthy is the 5-star. Tim Tebow is the 5-star. That will turn out to be, well, Tebow, a prolific player, an all-time great, and at least at the college level, a great passer. And McCarthy's supposed to be one, and he's shown the arm talent. I'm guessing that he threw 50 or 60 passes last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of those were in, maybe more competitive game situations versus, some of the blowouts they had. But I agree with you. I thought I could see he's got a pretty live arm and looked pretty good throwing the ball down the field. Although, I tell you what, I thought the one play, didn't they have a key play where he had a key fumble in the Michigan State game where they tried to run him, and that may have been a play that might have cost him that game, actually.
2 fumbles in that game.
Yeah, that's right. He did. That was 2 fumbles. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What's your overall feeling from your team up north people, Mark? I mean, is the feeling that he should be the starter? I don't know if Dace or if the rest of the folks up there feel that it's his time to take over the starting job over McNamara.
Yeah, most of the ones that I speak with, if I can recall, they either think just open competition, which I believe that's exactly what it should be. Now, this changes things to an extent, especially if he's coming back in July, and that means he is just stepping onto a field, meaning he can only start activity in July. Then I think that may push him into the season. So that may shut down the quarterback battle.
Well, the other thing, too, is, I don't know about you, Mark, but I mean, you can clearly see McNamara's got his limitations, you know what I mean, as a quarterback. I mean, this is a term that gets utilized a lot. I don't know if it's utilized as much recently, but, I mean, I thought McNamara is more like the game manager type quarterback. I know it's probably an overused term, but I think it applies to their situation a year ago, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that's what they want. They're not going to throw the ball 50 times a game.
Right. Well, I mean, but that's also having the right quarterback, the right group of receivers, gives you the capacity to open up your offense and swing it around a little bit. That's why, I'm not saying the game manager type quarterback doesn't have its place. As an Ohio State fan, I still think in 2002, that's how I would describe Craig Krenzel, wouldn't you, Mark?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. But, I mean, if you're going to have that type of quarterback, you basically have to have what they had up there last year, which is a really, really top-notch running game and a really top-notch defense. And if you have that, that you don't maybe need to score as many points, you lean on your run game and go that route. That's why I thought, though, that they were going to be in trouble when they faced Georgia, because I still felt that the teams this was proven, the team that was going to beat Georgia was going to be a team that could throw the ball down the field. And that was the only team that beat them last year, was a team that was capable of doing that.
Yep. That was the
team.
And then,
you could see when. Right. And you saw that when Michigan played them because they fell behind by a couple scores, and they were really lost at that point because they couldn't lean on their running game anymore.
For sure.
So,
But I really, yeah, I'm just thinking back through Ohio State quarterbacks, and there haven't been really that many until recently that weren't game managers. And I just think that you know, we all have a handle on what that term means, but it's kind of changed through the years too. You know, Cade McNamara's, he threw the ball, at least for the second half of the season, more than quarterbacks 10 years ago that we would not have considered game managers.
Right. That's true. I mean, but I mean, the one thing that I would say is their offense was not built around his ability to be in the shotgun and sling the ball around. You know, their offense was more built around running the ball with Haskins and Quorum in the running game. And when you have an offense that's more built around the running game than it is the passing game, I think that's also where I was going with my part of the argument there too.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I would doubt if anyone would argue with you that Cade McNamara he's not the focal point of the offense. He's not a dynamic player.
I would say this. By the way, Mark, I would say that the Ohio State quarterbacks play like 90s Ohio State quarterbacks, like a Hoying or like a Jermaine. Those guys could sling it around a little bit, especially, in the years where they played really well, like 95, 98, where they were really, really good passers.
Well, yeah, they were really good passers, but I don't know that there was much more workload placed on them than what was placed on Cade McNamara last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at their passing attempts, versus his. Obviously, football was played differently in the 90s than it is played right now, But I know that Hoying had a really good year and like threw 30 touchdowns in '95, and I think Jermaine got close to that in '98. Now I don't know if either one of them in those years were throwing the ball 30, 35 times a game that year because they actually had pretty strong running games. Obviously, Eddie George won the Heisman in '95. But, they were still, capable of, throwing the ball down the field. And if they had to throw the ball 30 plus times, they were going to be really effective doing it. That was the point I was making, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else, David? Yeah, keep going.
Well, I wanted to ask you because about the program. I just wanted to see how that all-time rankings is coming for you, Mark.
Well, I have all the rankings done. All the numbers are crunched. Everything's done, and the videos are to be released. So, one each day.
That's okay. Oh, so is that like coming soon, or where you at with that? I was just curious.
Oh, the first one's going to be released Monday.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I will look forward to that. And then, are you doing anything with those national championship years as well?
Well, they're factored into the equation, if that's what you mean. Well, I've gone through the national championship years, and if somebody gets curious as to which ones I added and took away, then shoot, maybe I'll cut a video and let really open myself up for all sorts of criticism because I'm looking at. I think I mentioned, I either posted this or I mentioned this that I've altered. I think 17 national championships since 1970.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's more than a few debatable ones. That's why I love you. By the way, any chance that the series is coming back on debatable national championship years? I know you thought you had a little bit larger audience for that, but I really enjoyed those. I just want to say, mark me down as a fan of those. I thought those were you did a good job with those.
Well,
so
thank you, David.
If you ever do bring them back, I enjoy them.
I do appreciate that, and I enjoy making those. I love going through that stuff, but I'm kind of working also on a larger project yet to be announced that kind of ties into that. So maybe that's why another reason why I haven't done them. But they're anything historical. Of course, it's got a rabid fan base, but it tends to be smaller.
Got it. Well, you know what? I'll be looking forward to that coming up on the all-time rankings this week, Mark. Otherwise, you take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Yeah. So once again, what we're doing is we're breaking down the all-time program rankings, and I gave a criteria in a video posted a couple days ago. So check out that video. We've got 10 criteria, and then I'm going to start posting the videos. And I decided let's do each conference, and then we'll throw them all together, and they'll be able to rank them. And I've already, just based on the criteria video, got about 50 comments that were mostly optimistic, but some people took their shots, and that's fine. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing?
DeAndre, what's going on?
You know what is really shocking? That most of those ideas were mine. You know, I heard the last gentleman say, you know, he liked the national championship thing. It was me who brought it up. And in the all-time list, because I think I'm the one that tweeted it to you and started the conversation. So I'm amazed at how.
Well, not to take anything away from you, DeAndre, but I've been talking about all-time program rankings for like 20 years, so that's not something that, needed to be suggested.
It was me that came with.
But
it's me that came.
I've been throwing those out for years. That's just like. You know, I put out my first playoff proposal in 1984 when I was 16 years old. So none of these things, all this stuff is already out there and has been for years and years in terms of all-time program rankings and disputed national championships. And I'm not saying I made them up or came up with the idea, because I didn't. They've been going on for years and 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 years. From a lot of sources.
Yeah, but the problem that I'm going to have with whatever list you're coming out with, Mark, and it's no disrespect to anybody.
Sure.
Ohio State's a great program, Southern Cal, but you got to take in integration. You can't really talk about all-time programs unless you deal with the discrimination that happens in the South. So whatever you come with I'm grateful that you took my idea. I know you've been doing it for years, but you know me, you go back and forth about it all the time. But you can't do it without talking about integration and discrimination in the South and how that affected certain programs. Like I said, you know, look at Pitt, benefited from it. Ohio State probably has, and Southern Cal benefited. Michigan, Minnesota in the 50s, they benefited from, you know, African Americans coming from the South to go out there and play. Because I think the coach at Minnesota at that time had his ties to Tennessee. So I'm just using that as an example. But it's going to be hard to do. And go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say, and we've talked about this in the past, and I've always said that you have an extremely valid point, and it's really the only dividing line that I think is legitimate for all these other people that say, well, football started in 1980 or football started in 1950. They're just making up dates that mean nothing. And I have that all the time. You know, I had two people comment to this latest series, and one of them said, well, you shouldn't start counting anything until 1980. And somebody else said, you shouldn't start counting anything until 1990. And I'm like, why? You have no backing for that. Why was football played any different in 1979 than it was in 1980? It wasn't. Or 1989, they're just making up years. What you're bringing to the table is legitimate. It's the sport has completely changed because, unfortunately, because of just foolishness and hatred and racism, we discarded those athletes for a long time. And then it wasn't like 1 year, 1965, everyone at the same time said, we'll let everyone play that wants to play and can play. No, it affected different schools different ways because they were more willing to desegregate. The one thing I will say about it, though, DeAndre, if you really think about it, you can also give it this perspective that although those schools that decided to desegregate first had the advantage, well, that was their decision. So why should they not be given credit for that?
I don't know. I totally agree with you, but I mean, like I said, it's one of those situations where you're gonna have to look at it all. You can also say the media market. I think it was Ohio State, Tulsa, and Clemson. I think they had the same record in 1942, 43, somewhere around that era. And Ohio State won the national championship over those schools. And it's like, well, why? What was the big difference? There couldn't have been that much difference in scheduling at that time. So why did they win the national championship and Clemson and Tulsa did? Maybe because it was media market, because, you know, the media was closer to Columbia than it was a little hick town in South Carolina, or I don't know what Tulsa's what population looked like back at that time, but I'm sure there was not a lot of big areas outside of Dallas around that time around Tulsa. So, you know, there's a lot of factors that you got to look at, but, you know, man, I'm going to enjoy it. You know, I don't care what nobody say. And, you know, I know Ohio State and Southern Cal is tied right now for the most NFL. I think Ohio State has passed Southern Cal, but I would always say Southern Cal is probably the best program since the start of integration. I know you're going to tell me that Ohio State has more, a better winning percentage than Southern Cal does over that time period, but I always say Southern Cal because they got a winning record versus Ohio State and Michigan and those schools also. So, you know, and that's what I would go with in the amount of national championships and Heisman Trophy winners. But, you know, but I can't wait to see your list.
Yeah, so there's also a different. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark. No,
I was just going to say there's a difference also in that, you know, I made up these criteria and I gave them the proper weight that I felt and thought was appropriate to it. You know, I'm not going to count a Heisman Trophy to be worth as much as a conference championship. So I weighted each category a lot differently. But I'm just going to lay out the numbers. I came up with a system. And somebody commented that, well, this is your opinion. Well, it's not my opinion. I did determine the criteria and how much weight's given to each, but I can't make up conference championships or winning percentage. Those are it's just data. I could certainly present the list of what the data says and then make my opinion known to say, well, the data says they're first and they're second, they're third, but I really think so-and-so's third. They really should be first because of X, Y, and Z. I can always do that and interject my opinion, but I'm just laying out the numbers there based on winning percentage, conference championships, national championships, poll rankings, Heisman's, All-Americans, NFL draft selections, first round selections, all the things that I threw in there.
Right, and you're going to end up with Ohio State, not because you're an Ohio State fan, but fact that Ohio State has had better,
Maybe.
and all those facts outside of Heisman.
You might be surprised.
Well, that's what you're going to end up with. Yeah, well, I'm going to be surprised, but see what gets me is, and I know Michigan went to the championship game this year, but most of Michigan's successes was, and I know they was good in the 80s and 90s, don't get me wrong, but when I say major success was before they started football, before everybody else did. You know, you go look at their schedule in 1890, they playing the Chicago Heart Surgeons. They might have had a good team out there. I don't know, because I wasn't alive at that time, and I don't have no film of them watching, but I mean, how do you count what Yale or Princeton did, or even what you would have to say about Grambling State and Tennessee State at that time period? I mean, how do you really count those up against it? I mean, no, they don't have no Heisman Trophy winners, but we know what type of talent Grambling State, Tennessee State, Florida A&M put out. You know, we all know that. So how do you count? Morgan State's another school that doesn't get mentioned. And Morgan State's football history is probably better than Grambling, to be honest with you. if you go look at it, I think they won like 8 CIAA straight. So, they probably had a better football tradition than Gremlin did. But, we're not going to be able to talk about that because people don't care or are not going to look at it. That I think Florida A&M beat Miami back in the early 70s before Harris Sandberg got there. So, I mean, I don't know how we're going to look at it. I think Grambling State beat Hawaii, Louisiana Tech, a few other programs, big-time programs. They're not big-time, but, private schools that have better facilities. So how do we count those? I mean, it's just hard. And, your travels into that subject is going to be very good, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm one of those people when we always going back and forth on Twitter and stuff like that about it. But, hey, I think it's just taking those higher level schools, Power 5, I think by far it should be Southern Cal. I have a feeling that you're going to go with Ohio State. And not
well, again, DeAndre, I'm not going with anyone. I just came up with a system that I think is pretty reasonable. I know it's reasonable. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not perfect. There's no way to make it perfect, but it's a good system. It makes sense. And whatever the numbers spit out, I'm just going to read them off. It's not my opinion. My opinion would be that Ohio State's had the most consistent football program since World War II. Since World War II, since 1950, since 1970, since 2000, they've got the best record. I would say they have the most consistent. They've basically not been down. Since Woody Hayes stepped on campus, they pretty much, their worst period was 87 to 92, and they were still going 8-4 those seasons, basically.
Can I ask you this, more this being funny?
Yeah.
So Ohio State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Penn State, I consider it traditional powers.
Yeah.
Outside of Clemson, who else has a winning record versus all of those teams? Miami. You throw all of them in there. Who else has a winning record versus all of those teams?
So you're just telling me that Clemson has a winning record against Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame?
No. I shouldn't say Michigan. I don't think they ever played.
Oh, okay. Not Michigan. Whoever you just said. Penn State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anyone would.
Miami. Miami.
Oh, Miami's got a winning record against all those teams?
Yeah. Ohio State.
Miami's got a winning record against Ohio State? I don't think so.
No.
No, they don't. I know they don't. Oh, you're adding Miami to that list. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Maybe USC does. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I'm about to say this. Well, USC and Miami, have they ever played?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Now, I'll let you go. But your boy made my day last week on the West Virginia Talk Show. Yeah. Because he's been saying something I've been trying to tell people for years, that if you go back and look at Clemson in the 80s, and I'm not saying NFL talent for talent, but Clemson had some very good teams, just like Miami and Florida State did. Yeah. I mean, I know they beat Florida State during that time period, and then when Miami never matched up. But if it wasn't for those probation years, Clemson was up on a high projected, but because of that those 3 probation years, that pretty much killed Clemson. Because I think South Carolina even beat them. I think it was like 1-1-1 versus South Carolina through those 3 years. But I was trying to tell people that, like, do y'all know how good Clemson was in the 80s? And like I said, they fell off because, the probation and, a lot of other stuff. But I said, man, they beat Penn State, Oklahoma, Nebraska. I don't know why people, to me, Stanford's not a powerhouse, but they beat Stanford. And I think it was either the Gator Bowl they played them in?
Gator Bowl, yes.
What's it called? Yeah. So, yeah. So, they beat most of the powerhouses that Miami beat during that time period. So, I said, Not saying they would have as much talent as Miami, because Miami had Michael Irvin. I don't think Clemson had anybody there as good as Michael Irvin, but defensive line and running backs and not quarterback. But I think Clemson probably put most of their talent out there and said it was pretty good in the 80s. Linebacker too. But I'll let you go, Mark. Keep listening to the show. You have a great night, man, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, DeAndre. Thanks so much for calling, and have a good night.
All right. You too.
So we appreciate DeAndre, and he hit me up the other day and said, or maybe he just left a comment there in the video that said, yeah, I'm throwing out the ideas and then I'm turning them into great content. But there you go. DeAndre calls, and sure, during the actual season calls up and talks about the games going on right then and there. But the rest of the offseason certainly calls in, and we have some great conversations about the history of college football. I'll make one or two explanations on my national champions. One is that the first national championship was in 1869. And that's when college football started. ESPN did their 150-year anniversary of college football with all their specials. And that was 2 years ago, based on 2019, going back 150 years to 1869, because that's when the first college football game was played. If you go back to 1869, there's no reason to count any of that. There's like 3 games. There were like 3 games played. And you can go through the first 20 years of college football, and there's like 4, 5, 6 teams, and they're playing 3 games, 4 games. I'm not counting. It's just not legitimate. And on top of that, it would be different. It would be a different argument if those teams were Michigan and Notre Dame and Oklahoma, and teams that then their records and accomplishments factored into this program ranking now. But these teams, other than a couple Ivy League teams that, of course, don't factor in now and have not for the last 80 to 90 years, all those schools and all their football programs are defunct. They don't exist now. So why count it? First of all, it's not legitimate because of the lack of teams played and the games played. And then also the football programs are defunct. So I went through like 20 years and I'm like, I'm not counting this. It just doesn't make sense. It's not valid. I even went into the mid 1920s. And of course, there's not a perfect year to start and say, okay, it's suddenly valid, because, you know, it's not like they went from 8 teams to 100 like that one year. That's not the way it happened. But once I got into the early to mid 20s, I was like, okay, since it is 2022 now, why don't we just go back 100 years? Because this is about the point in which, okay, these results are measurable. There's enough games played against each other that you can do that. So I'm going back 100 years and counting national championships from 1922 through 2021. And I got to tell you, I did not care what the AP and these other polls were listing as national championships, because most of them didn't make sense. And when I say they didn't make sense, I just mean that they may have listed one team that won the national championship, and I'm like, well, what about these other teams? They have just as good. And I went through it pretty exhaustively year to year. For example, in 1960, I believe in 1960, Minnesota and Ole Miss split a national championship. I think it was in 60. It was Minnesota and Ole Miss split a national championship. Well, look at Washington, look at Missouri, and look at Iowa. I cannot take national championships away from them. They earned it just as much as Ole Miss and Minnesota. I've got a 5-way tie for a national championship in 1960. Now, some people may think that's ridiculous. Like, well, you should only have one national champion. Well, these teams didn't play and they had similar credentials. You know, if I've got like 4 teams and they all went 10-1 and they didn't play each other, That should be a split national championship. It's different now because regardless of the record, they go into a playoff. And then even if you argue with the playoff and the teams that are included in the playoff, you can't argue with the results on the field in the playoff. So that's cleaned things up quite a bit since 2014. If you want to go back as recent as 2012, Alabama won the national championship in defeating Notre Dame in the BCS title game in easy fashion, of course. I took the NCAA probation off everyone. I took it off Florida in 1984. I took it off of everybody. They're competing. They're playing in bowl games. Most of these teams, not all of them. Shouldn't say that. So my point about 2012 is Ohio State went undefeated. They get a split national championship from me. I took another one away from Ohio State. In 2007, I got 5 national champions. That's easy to defend. Kyle Pickett. I think Kyle had made mention here earlier as I get my $100 glasses on. Kyle had mentioned here earlier, I'm not going to be able to find it, that, hey, I've been restricted. I am not allowed. There it is. Hey, Mark, not allowed to donate anymore once drinking. Wink, wink. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate the contribution. Thank you so much for that. It is great to see everybody out there. And thank you so much for joining. Antoine, Nate, Roberto's here. What happened to JJ? JJ got hurt. Apparently, it's not official from the football program, but it's official in regards to it's being reported out there enough on major sites. And again, I got a text at like 3 o'clock this afternoon saying JJ got hurt at practice today. So it's obviously being reported and it's legit. Now, to what degree? Well, surgery's involved and he's probably not stepping on a football field. I got to think it's mid-March, shoulder surgery. He probably can't perform any activities athletically until July. So I don't know when he can take a hit. Of course, he's not going to take one in practice. He's not going to take one until he probably gets into a game. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Michigan fan there, Mark Thibodeau. Chris says, it looks like a slight tear in the rotator cuff. Tim says, shoulder surgery on a quarterback. He'll be back in July, but how long will it take to get him back to being a starting quarterback? Exactly. I'm thinking in July, he's going to be jogging and he's going to be light tossing. You know, shoulders can lag on healing completely, and the throwing motion, even off a little bit, can change everything. John Doe talking quarterbacks. Keaton Slovis is that guy. Pitt is here to stay. Yeah, Keaton Slovis, talk about a quarterback who had some shoulder injuries and issues. Of course, during the shortened season of 2020, he did not look good. Still put up some decent numbers, had some great weapons, of course. And then this last season, Keaton Slovis was on the shelf. So he's coming off 2 seasons in which he was definitely hurt, missed time, and the season before played through injuries to his shoulder. So Keaton Slovis, that's a shoulder to keep an eye on as well with Pitt. All right, let's take another call here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
It is the real MVP. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time.
Yes, sir. What have you been up to?
I've just been watching a bunch of basketball. As a Kentucky fan, I feel like, that time of year where it's all basketball for us. Yeah, we just won the women's tournament today. We beat the #1 team.
Okay.
That was exciting.
All right.
So that was good. So in terms of football,
Yes.
let me ask you, what does Jaden Daniels provide to LSU that Max Johnson couldn't?
He can run all over the place. Quick, fast.
Okay. And do you think that goes with Brian Kelly's offensive style?
In the past, no. His quarterbacks, the Jack Cones and the Ian Books. Ian Book could run. Not fast and quick, not super fast quick, but mobile, could run, threaten the defense a little bit. Tommy Reese, no. Zaire, can't think of his first name. Malik Zaire. He could run around a little bit, and Everett Golson was a runner. So there's been a little bit of both, but more recently, no. Passing quarterbacks for Brian Kelly, but he's bringing in Jaden Daniels. Now, that's not to say Jaden Daniels wants to be a runner. That's not to say that he's Lamar Jackson. He wants to be a thrower, and he wants to develop into a NFL quarterback.
Okay. And with the J.J. McCarthy news out today,
Yes.
is Michigan just like the giant circus clown of college football now? I mean, everything in terms of the offseason, I feel like Michigan has just been a complete distraction.
Well, you say that because of Harbaugh, first and foremost, and that's 95% of your statement, right?
Yes.
And the other is now they had their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator both take off.
And now their quarterback, who we have no idea if he's going to, I mean, it says July, but we don't know what the shoulder injury for July is. Is it just him tossing footballs? Is him going full speed? We don't know. So it just feels like it's a bunch of, it's not good. I'm getting a bad culture vibe from Michigan right now.
Well, they got a quarterback hurt. That can happen anywhere. You don't like the culture vibe there in Ann Arbor. This is what I'll say to Real MVP is certainly Michigan fans have every right to feel good about their program. They just won the Big Ten championship, went to a playoff, beat Ohio State by 2 scores. They are the champions of the Big Ten. They can wave their finger, number one in the Big Ten. Ohio State fans kind of write it off as, you know what, it had to happen sometime. We're still the best, and you got to prove it. And that was a bit of an aberration or a joke or a fluke or whatever. Okay, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think I've got more Michigan fans here on this channel than any other fan base. I believe that's my guess. More Michigan fans.
How is your email content?
Yeah, I need to crank that back up. But Michigan had a healthy lead over Ohio State was up there, and who else was up there? I'd have to pull it up, but Michigan had a substantial lead. Yes. And the Michigan videos most of the time do the best. So I got a lot of Michigan fans watching me, which I appreciate them being here. They're not going to like this comment necessarily. I see pluses and minuses based on what we just witnessed during the season. Mostly pluses, of course. Off season, some minuses. I think this program is still significantly or decidedly below Ohio State. I still think Ohio State's going to be the premier program in the conference unless something changes. They're still recruiting better. They still have a better roster, a better team. I don't expect them to win 15 out of 16, but I think they're going to continue to win more than they lose against Michigan.
I agree with that 100%. And plus, a lot of the team from last year was juniors and seniors, so I feel it hard for them to come back and beat Ohio State again in Columbus as well.
Well, to Real MVP,
it felt like
I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing with Michigan personnel losses. So they lost both of their safeties who are really good players, and Daxton Hill put on a performance at the NFL Combine today. Then you got the 2 DNs, the 2 bookends, David Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson, of course, who might be the first player taken in the draft. And then you got their best running back gone. Like, I see the same thing you do. Maybe not volume of players leaving, but leaders and the most productive players. Our friend Steve Dace at Michigan Podcast tells me that that's all just a smokescreen, and most of the talent and productivity is back, and Michigan had a young team, and Michigan has a team talent metric that he puts together, and he says that Michigan is a more talented team this season coming up in 2022 than Ohio State.
I don't know what metric he's been using, but whatever. In order to get that outcome, I would recommend him recalculate the formula. That's what I would recommend to him.
Yeah, as it stands right now,
how you can use Aiden Hutchinson and claim you're better.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if Michigan was a better team this year and won the Big Ten title and beat Ohio State again. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But as it stands right now in March, my money's on Ohio State.
Oh, yeah. I think most people, if you did a poll and said who wins, Michigan, Ohio State, I think 90% of people would say Ohio State.
We would take out.
When was the last time Ohio?
We'd take out the Ohio State and the Michigan
State
fans. We would say, you need to not vote here. We're taking the poll from the rest of college football.
Right. And when was the last time Michigan went into Ohio State and beat them?
2000, 22 years ago.
It's a long time, Mark.
It is. That's been a long time.
Is it? Yeah. So I just don't see them doing it this year. I'm sorry. I just don't see it at this point. Now, could something change? Could Ohio State players, injuries, transfers happen? Yes. But as of this moment, I just don't see Michigan beating Ohio State this year. And if they do, I got to give credit to Harbaugh and his staff for pulling some type of rabbit. But the final thing I'll ask you, Mark, okay, since it's the offseason, we need offseason talk, is I want you to be the commissioner of the Pac-12. How do you make that conference better?
Oh, my goodness. I got to take that mess on? Okay. Well, I do like their commissioner. I will say that before we get started here. And that's just based on his background and what he's trying to do with the league. He understands entertainment. He understands TV, media, digital. He's really trying to vault that conference into the current age. What would I do to build up the Pac-12? I would do some extensive studies of watch time across the country and try to really do an exhaustive brainstorming of when should we be playing our football games. And then, I really don't know what I would do with this Pac-12 network, because on one hand, cable TV is dying, but if these channels are smart, these networks are smart, they're obviously transitioning to digital, and you can catch the Big Ten network and the SEC network online. I would, if you're giving me unlimited money, man, I would build that thing up into a monster. That's what you need, is an identity piece, and make it fun and make it intriguing and attractive to young people. I'm not talking about just showing old Rose Bowl games and then during the offseason show a bunch of tennis and water polo matches on the Pac-12. No, I'm talking about like innovative kind of programming, like fun stuff that gets young people interested.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would get the Pac-12 on major TV, because on my TV, I don't have the Pac-12 network. I have the ACC network, the Big Ten network, and the SEC network.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
So I would be probably right. And then it sounds like you want to get rid of Pac-12 after dark.
No. There's a spot for that. There's a place for that. But that should not be the bulk of the conference games. Put your games that are still going to be fun to watch, but not your meaningful games. That's going to be a lot of Arizona State, Washington State kind of games. Yeah, you still want to be on all the time. I want to be on all day. I would fill each broadcast window. So you've got 12 teams, you got 6 games during the conference season. You got more than that when they're playing out of conference games, but 6 games during the conference season. I would always be playing. That's another thing. Starting at noon is kind of tough. I'm talking Eastern time because obviously you got to get those kids out. And I thought that was brutal to have them. For example, the first game of the season, both this past season and then the season before, because the Pac-12 was the last conference on the field in 2020. It was a USC Arizona State game that they played at noon Eastern time because they just wanted exposure. Those guys are playing at 9 in the morning in LA. I don't know that can really force them to do that, but I would think about maybe alternating that game and making every program have to suck it up once during the season to do that. So I've got a game in Eastern Standard Time at noon, 3:30, 7, and then late night I dominate. When everybody else is done playing the Big Ten, the SEC, I'm playing at 10:30 Eastern Time. I'd spread all my games out.
And you probably can have your worst game on there.
Yeah.
You probably have a horrible matchup because you're the
I don't know about my worst
playing.
game. I don't know if I'd play my worst game there.
Bottom tier.
I'd play what I would hope to be a kind of a fun game. Again, not the best teams, but yeah, like a high scoring game. I'd reserve that for Oregon State and Washington State or whoever. Yeah. It's the best I can do for you.
One of the things I believe in terms of building up a conference is coaching. I believe getting big name coaches is important.
Yeah.
And an example of this is the SEC. I believe, now I may be a little bit crazy, I believe 9 or 10 of the SEC has probably the top 25 coaches.
Ooh.
And if
really?
you go through the list. Nick Saban. Jimbo Fisher.
Wait a minute. Saban, you got him up there? Okay, I guess he makes it. All right. Saban.
Not all time, but currently.
I know. Okay, so Saban's up there, Jimbo's up there. 9 of the top 25. It's
Kirby Smart.
Sure.
Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin.
Sure.
Mike Leach.
Yeah.
Mark Stoops.
Okay.
And Shane Beamer.
I'm not going to pull the trigger on Shane Beamer being one of the 25 best coaches in college football yet, but early indications are good.
So how many did I list there?
Probably close to 9. What do we got? Saban, Jimbo, Kelly is 3. Leach is 4. Kiffin 5. Stoops 6. Smart 7. At least 7. And certainly Heupel's off to a good start. So at least 7. I'm good with that. Shoot, the Big Ten would have close to that. Day, Tucker, Harbaugh, Pat Fitzgerald, I'm putting in the top 25. Probably Paul Chryst, maybe PJ Fleck. Maybe our guy Kirk Ferentz. I don't know. I know that you're a frequent viewer there in the chat with the disgruntled Iowa fans.
Oh yeah, it's nice to not be the only ones that have misery at times.
It's a tremendous football program. They just need to light a fire under that place and make some moves. Get aggressive.
Well, they did make a move. They made a move and everybody got mad. They just made the wrong move.
Yeah.
So how would you, going back a little bit earlier, is how would you make the Pac-12 coaching and just like the staff better if you were in charge?
Well, see, that's the thing that you can't, each individual institution makes its own coaching hires. But yes, that goes back to money. So I really like the two hires for the two big programs this past off season, USC, Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning to Oregon. But those are those individual football programs making a decision on those coaches. How is Pac-12 head coaching? Lincoln Riley's really good. Herm Edwards, I think, got off to a good start. I'm not so crazy about him, right? Kyle Whittingham's a tremendous coach. David Shaw, starting to question him. Washington's really hit a skid here with Chris Peterson, one of the very best coaches in college football, leaving. Jimmy Lake was a bad replacement. He's gone. Now Kalen DeBoer. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you because those are up to the individual programs. It's almost like what we were talking about the other day with the playoff and expanding the playoff, and people argue against the expansion of the playoff because they don't want to see more blowout games. And my response is that's not my issue. My issue as, let's say, college football commissioner would be to format a playoff that's entertaining, that's inclusive, that gives opportunity for the entire country, and to do all those things, to make it fair, to make it a reasonable format that people understand and that works. I can't help that 4 programs dominate the nation. That's not my concern when I build a playoff format. And it's similar here. I would have suggestions for the schools. I would make those moves that we just talked about to try to generate more revenue and more interest in the football out there. But if Oregon State wants to pay $2.5 million for a football coach and everybody else is paying $5+, then not much I can do about that as the commissioner of the Pac-12.
Well, I'll go with the last thing about the playoffs. And something I've heard, and I haven't heard anybody brought it up, is possible seed manipulation for the playoffs.
Okay.
Like if you expanded it to 8 this year, Notre Dame would have had to play Cincinnati again. Ohio State would have had to play Michigan. And then Ole Miss would have had to play Bama. Now, instead of having those rematches, do you think the committee would have manipulated the seeds to where there would have been no rematch? And then my follow-up with these, do you think that would be fair if they intentionally avoided rematch?
Well, it's not fair because if they truly believe and they have the data to back it up that team number 1 is number 1 and team number 2 is truly 2 and 3 and all the way through 8, then they shouldn't manipulate the matchups. But I can understand doing so, but they should be honest about it. And maybe that would even be in the rules to say we rank the teams appropriately 1 through 8, but if there's a rematch that can be avoided, then we may swap 7 for 8 or 6 for 5, and we would maybe the rule would be we would only swap 1 position. They're not going to drop 8 to 4 just to avoid a matchup. That's truly not fair. Right. But I think everyone would understand that the 7th seed and the 8th seed are pretty much of a comparable resume, so it's not a complete injustice to flip-flop 8 and 7.
So it sounds like that wouldn't be an issue if they change the seedings a bit, because we all kind of speculate they do it anyway.
It would not be an issue for me, but I would want them to be honest and forthright about it.
Okay. And, out of this conversation, Mark, it sounds like you need to make a top 25 coaches video.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've done that in the past. What I typically do to Real MVP is I rank the coaches in every conference. I think I'm going to do this. This is going to be the next series for the next week after this week when we do our program rankings is, we're going to rank the coaches. So I'll rank the coaches in every conference, and then we'll put together a top 10 list or a top 25 list.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Mark. That's all I got for you tonight.
All right. And it sounds like you think this Saban guy should be close to number one.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. He hasn't, he's only won it one out of the last 4 years, so I'm not sure if that's going to put him a tick below some other coaches. So, I don't know. You have to look into that.
Okay. We will crunch the numbers. All right, man. Well, have a good night. Folks, we appreciate you being here, the voice of college football. Please, when you shop online and go to Amazon, use the link that we provide in the description section of the video. So just go to any video, go to the description section. It's the box under the actual video window, description section there. Grab the Amazon link. Amazon is listed in all caps, Amazon link right there. And put that link somewhere where you will remember it to do your shopping. It's the same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny. Also, we got a Discord. So what's going on there is we've got college football conversations going on all the time. And you guys know that I'm always honest with you concerning this. I'm not going to say that it's going to be the most amazing, riveting college football conversation right this second, because we just started like a week ago. I think we're coming up on like 10 days. So there's like 20 people in there. Actually, there should be about 50 in there, because all our patrons at the Voice of College Football community have the link to get in there. So we've got like 50 people that are in there. So join up there on Patreon. Go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. You can sign up. I get you a link, and you can join us on Discord and talk college football all the time. And I jump in there at least once a day myself. All right, let's get to these comments. Let's see what you got in here. There we go. Joey's pushing some podcasts from somewhere. There we go. That might actually be mine. It looks like it is. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Joey. Appreciate that so much. So we are on, I never push this, but that's just another facet of the business that I need to get working on. But we do have audio available. So what you're going to find there is most of the videos that we produce and post in video form, that we also post them on the various platforms that Joey lists right there. iTunes, Stitcher, what is that last one? I believe it's Player FM, Google Play, all your Spotify, all your major platforms there, iHeart Radio. So you get, when I could find some time, what I would like to do is a designated unique audio podcast. I did that for 3 or 4 months, about 5 years ago, where I was putting together an audio podcast. It would be great to get a really good co-host and put together an audio podcast and do that. Shoot, love to do it every day. Maybe start out once a week. But for right now, we just take the videos here. And we just strip the audio and post those to those audio platforms. Joey helping us out once again here. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You can search Mark Rogers TV there. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, and contribute there. Tim is saying we need more Pac-12 fans on the Discord. Eric and I are arguing back and forth. Exactly. And for those of you that are on the Discord right now, I so much appreciate you guys because you guys are the beginning of it. So everything's got to start somewhere. So we had to start with 1 and then 2 people and 3 people. And again, we should actually have 50 people on there because we've got 50 on Patreon. And everybody that signed up on Patreon has a link to Discord. So go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. I get you a link and you can join Tim and Eric if you love the Pac-12 and talk. We've got a channel for the Pac-12, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC, then a national channel. And then what I'm expecting is once we get to the season, you know, if there's a big debate, discussion that breaks out concerning Ohio State and Notre Dame, well, I'll set up a channel so we can funnel all the Ohio State Notre Dame game discussion there. And whoever else is playing week 1 that's big, Pitt in West Virginia, bam, we'll make a channel. And there's a place for you to do, of course, text, but also voice messages as well. So, Tim, thank you for that. Appreciate you being there. And I hop in at least once a day and see what's going on and comment to everyone. Joey, thank you so much for posting the Amazon link. So I got to say, for everybody out there that shops on Amazon, and it's a ton of you, I know, please use the Amazon link. It would help us tremendously. Tiger Hawks here. Anyways, good luck this year with the Wolverines. You guys will be good and a tough team to beat. Let the haters hate. Yes, Michigan's going to have a really good year. I still think they're fine. They will contend for the Big Ten championship. Mike says the rematch talk is tired. That crap is why we did not get a rematch in 2006. Yeah, 2006 was interesting because the polls were definitely manipulated. Because after Ohio State beat Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, then Michigan still held the number 2 spot. Then the next weekend, of course, Florida won the SEC championship over an Arkansas team that I believe was 13th in the country. So still a quality win. And Urban Meyer complained and Florida jumped. And they backed it up. But most people thought at that point that Ohio State and Michigan were the 2 best teams in the country. That would prove to not be the case. 2006. I got 2 national champions in 2006. Guess who they are? Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Yeah. Hey, Mark. It's Tim. How you doing?
Hey, Tim.
Yeah,
doing well. What's going on?
Well, I'm just calling to get all these fence sitters off the fence because I was going to say to them that it's only $5 in order to join the Patreon, which means a cup of coffee, right?
That's it.
You know, that's what the whole plus is supporting the channel.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I would hope, and I know that a lot of people contribute even outside of that. So I sometimes see those contributions and think you just took 5 of that and joined Patreon. In the more that we build that, then the more I'm going to be able to do and take your suggestions and requests to build it out with more content and to do other things there.
Yeah, and I'm wondering also, you know, when you have Discord, you also have that audio channel. So basically, it'd be great. I'm wondering how they can use that during game day. So it'd be a pretty fun forum for the fans that are in there on the Patreon, maybe to watch some football. But I had a question for you. Why I called originally actually was to ask you. So we're getting rid of the championships going way back. What does that do to the when do the win totals start in percentages? Is that are you gonna go from all time wins, or are you gonna start at a certain date for that as well?
Well, Tim, there would be a lot of things that I would like to do if I had some kind of massive computer format and was able to punch in these numbers and then be able to then manipulate them in any such fashion that I wanted. But since I got to do everything by hand, there are a lot of things, again, that it has to pay off to a certain extent, because I've got, of course, content to produce for 25 channels. So I can't make this like a 100-hour project. Just like the strength of schedules. Like, I would love to have a category that would list, let's say, top 10 wins, top 25 wins, to be able to also cite, okay, who's beating the best teams over all this time. But for me to do that, again, I don't know that there's a database that has that information, and for me to count it up, of course, would take forever. Strength of schedule, that would take forever. So all those things. So I would love to be able to hit a button and then say, set these numbers to the year 2000, because I would love to release one that says, okay, this is all time. This is since World War II. This is since 1970. This is since 2000. And this is the last 10 years. Love to do all those.
Some programs did pad a lot of their wins back when they were the big kid on the block and they're just beating up on the local YMCA.
Yeah, so the win totals.
My question also,
or I'm sorry, Tim, just to finish the answer to your question, is the winning percentages are the winning percentages of all time. Because I wasn't going to take, okay, this is Michigan's all-time record, and then I got to go through every season starting in what for them, 18, whatever it was, in 1890, and subtract wins and losses. I would be here forever doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and I obviously have a clear bias, being a C fan on this, but I really do think that the major bowl games, like your Rose Bowls, and those matchups, because a lot of teams don't have those major matchups that the Big Ten and the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 had in those days. But I mean, what kind of emphasis are you going to put on those major bowls, where the big boys all played each other? So some years SC was playing the Big Ten champ and Notre Dame, and you're talking the 60s and 70s. That's a pretty good slate in any year.
Yeah, so what you'll have to do, I don't know if you saw the initial video where I explained the criteria, and then you're going to see the point totals and how they're going to play out. I gave major bowl wins twice as much weight as other bowl wins. And that's not even perfect either, of course, because you can have a Citrus Bowl game between an SEC and a Big Ten team that are both ranked in the top 10 or 15 in the country. That's a tremendous matchup, and it's a better matchup than Wisconsin beat Western Michigan in a major bowl game in the Cotton Bowl in 2016. There's always a group of 5 team that makes it, and sometimes it's not the best team in the world. So major bowl wins versus, other bowl wins. That's not even, none of it's perfect. None of it. They're all disclaimers and qualifiers to everything. But I distinguished major bowl wins, giving them twice as much value as other bowl wins.
Right. Well, yeah. I was just calling in. I really do think I really appreciate everything you're doing. I'm really enjoying the off season. It used to be where February was a great time because we're getting the recruiting season, leading up to the real signing day. That was always a nice cushion between getting to spring ball. But we're spring ball now. But I gotta say, the last 3 months being on your channel has just fed that addiction that I have to college football. So keep the great work. Appreciate everything you do for all of us. And again, for all you guys out there not throwing the $5, $5, that's it. Why not join the Patreon? See what we're doing over on the Discord. Because even again, I'm probably driving Eric crazy. We're just fighting back and forth about Oregon and USC, but it's a good forum. It's respectful, and I think everyone out there would enjoy it. So thanks again,
Awesome.
Mark.
Thank you so much for that, Tim. I appreciate that. Have a good night.
You too.
It's been great to have Tim here. I don't know at what point he showed up. It was sometime last season, I believe. I might be wrong, but I see Tim in a ton of the live chats. And again, he's on Discord, and I appreciate the encouragement there. All right. So the reason I fired up the live stream tonight and the call-in show was first and foremost the two big quarterback stories of the day. Jaden Daniels, former Arizona State quarterback, going to LSU. He will battle Miles Brennan and be a slight favorite, in my estimation, to win the job. And the other one being J.J. McCarthy. This not substantiated or confirmed by the University of Michigan, but I think we can pretty much surmise that all the information that we see on major sites online are telling us that J.J. McCarthy injured his shoulder, his throwing shoulder, and will be out to probably sometime in July. And again, I take that until we get the details, which I would think the university is going to communicate on Monday. Until we get the details, I got to think that July means that he's going to start exercising, running, tossing a football. Not like he's going to be doing that in May, and then by July, he's going to be ready to roll. Because if that were the case, then, hey, first day of August camp, he's ready to go. I hope so, for his sake, for his career. I hope so. I don't want to see anyone injured. But it doesn't sound like that's the timetable. Sounds like that's going to be the start of his road back. Tiger Hawk, Tim does sound like a nice guy. And he's a USC fan who is, he enjoys talking to Eric, but he's kind of sick of talking to Eric and Eric with him. So they need more in the Pac-12 channel on Discord. So again, go to Patreon. Patreon. Patreon, search MarkRogersTV, and you sign up right there. And I get you a link that sends you to Discord. I knew nothing about Discord like 2 months ago. So if I could set up Discord, and I want to give a big thank you to our guy, Garrett Royer. I shouldn't say I set up the Discord. I kind of gave the direction and worked with Garrett, but he set it up for me. But if I can maneuver around the thing, then anyone can. But it's easy. It's like a message board. It's like this right here. But it's running all the time. Mike says that bowl games are not a legit litmus test. They're essentially glorified home games for the SEC and the Pac-12. Yeah, there's an unfair advantage in regards to where the games are played. I think that only it's been in the last 3 or 4 years that we really had an issue where games have been slanted or leaned based on opt-outs. So over the course of college football history, bowl games have been taken very seriously by programs and by teams for the most part. You know, when you look at, take 2007. In 2007, we know that LSU won a national championship, became the first team that's won as a 2-loss team during the BCS era and now playoff era. But if you take the entire resume into account, going into postseason play in 2007, now this again is what I don't like, is that all this power lies in the hands of now a playoff committee. And before that, these voters, these sports writers / coaches, and the coaches don't even vote, which reminds me of a nice segment we did with Zach Smith a couple days ago. I have yet to release that. I got to edit that, but some really good stuff there. But going into the postseason in 2007, the famous crazy season where there was complete chaos, Ohio State was number 1. They were 11-1. LSU 11-2, Oklahoma 11-2, Georgia 10-2, Virginia Tech 11-2, USC 10-2, Mizzou 11-2, Kansas 11-1. Hawaii, of course, a weak schedule, 12-0. So take Hawaii out of it because of the obvious difference in scheduling credibility. And you've got Ohio State and Kansas were the only one-loss teams in the country. You've got 2 one-loss teams. So if you're strictly just going by record, Ohio State and Kansas should have played in the national championship game in 2007. Not saying that they should have. I'm just saying if you're a record person, if that's the most important thing to you, then Ohio State and Kansas should have played in the BCS championship game. Both teams were 11-1. Okay. And there were no conference championship games at this point except for in the Big 12 and the SEC. All right. Then you've got LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Virginia Tech, USC, Missouri, West Virginia, Arizona State, who's not even in the conversation, but Arizona State all had 2 losses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams had 2 losses. So when you don't have a playoff, how do you make anything out of that? So what I did was I said, okay, LSU played Ohio State. They got a big win. It was a BCS championship game. Of course, they won the BCS championship. But Georgia won the Sugar Bowl to finish 11-2. West Virginia routed Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns to win the, what was that, the Orange Bowl? Fiesta Bowl? I don't have the bowl results here. I'm just going off memory. USC, of course, won the Rose Bowl to finish 11-2. Missouri did whatever they did. Missouri won, I think, the Cotton Bowl that year. Maybe I should put them in as well. My goodness. I really think you've got a claim that all these teams shared a national championship. And again, I view this different to a certain extent that I do now with the college football playoff, because while I can argue that there are teams that have been left out of the playoff that had resumes just as qualified, circa 2018 Ohio State, Oklahoma, circa 2017 Ohio State, Alabama, circa 2016 Penn State, Ohio State, and others, 2014 Ohio State, all the teams minus Florida State, who was undefeated, and Baylor, TCU. You can make an argument every year except 2019 that somebody, not necessarily that somebody was in the playoff that should not have been, but that there were teams left out of the playoff that had just as good a resume. But at least there were games played among 4 teams to determine a national champion. Back in the BCS era, in 2007, there are 10 teams that had a legitimate argument to play in the national championship game. 10 teams. Now, we can sit here 15 years later and say, Kansas went 11-1. And then they not only did that, they backed it up with a tremendous bowl win. Who did they beat? Kansas beat, they beat Virginia Tech to finish 12-1. They won the Orange Bowl. So Kansas actually then played a top 5 team in the country, Virginia Tech, and beat them to back up their claim. And they finished with, if you really want to look at it, Kansas finished with the best record in the country. Maybe I should just say they're the national champion. They're the only 12-1 team in the country in 2007. But the way I'm looking at it is that LSU beat Ohio State. Ohio State's out. But LSU finished 12-2. Georgia 11-2. They did not play in the SEC championship game. That was LSU and Tennessee in 07. So unfortunately, yeah, LSU and Georgia. Georgia finished number 2. But LSU, Georgia, USC, Missouri, throw out Ohio State since they lost that head-to-head game. West Virginia, who beat Oklahoma by 20 points. Kansas. To me, that's it's a 5-way tie for the national championship. In all fairness. So those are the type of things that I looked at in going through the national championships year to year. I can never pronounce this guy's handle, but I appreciate, I should say this person's handle, because we do have some ladies here, which is 5% of the audience here, the Voice of College Football. If you want an insider on the YouTube metrics, the analytics by YouTube, 5% of the audience. So thank you, Nomahi. So here's the same thing here. Why do we glorify? Now, this is different now because the playoff is the playoff. You know, it's like the NFL playoffs. You can't say, well, so-and-so beat somebody in the regular season, then the other team beat them in the postseason, so it's 50-50. No, there's a determination to decide who's in the playoff. Then once they go into the playoff, they're all 0-0, and they play a playoff. Same type thing here. Even though I have an issue with the playoff is the playoff. So, yes, Alabama won the SEC championship. They beat Georgia. Some Alabama fans will say, well, they split, so they're both the national champion. No, Georgia beat Alabama in the national championship game. Plus, Georgia only lost 1 game, and Bama lost 2. So Bama or Georgia is the legitimate national champion this year. But in this situation, that was not a national championship. That was just a Sugar Bowl game, just a bowl game. So why does Florida State take the hit here? And they don't in my championship rankings. In my championship list, what happens in 1996, Florida State? They finished with the same record, and they split 2 games. Why is Florida the national champion? Why are they the lone national champion? They shouldn't be. That was not a playoff game. It was not a championship game against Florida State. They played in a bowl game. Florida State beat Florida, and then Florida beat Florida State. And I know the first game was close, 24-21, I believe. And I know the second game was 52-20, but still, 2 football games were played. They were split, and they had the same record. Split that national championship and split it with Ohio State as well. They all had 1 loss. That's being fair. Now, I know people out there don't want 5 teams winning a national championship in the past, but we didn't have a system to determine a national champion. We just had a bunch of bowl games. And I alluded to this before with DeAndre on the line, but just to give you a little tease, it's not anywhere close to being complete, but just to give you a little tease, I'm working on what is for our little operation, a major project concerning disputed national championships. So that's all I can say for right now, but I hope many of you will enjoy it. Yes, in 2004, Roger Dodger. You're talking about USC losing to Cal. For me in 2004, USC played Oklahoma and, of course, blew them out in the Orange Bowl to win the national championship. But meanwhile, we've got Utah winning a major bowl game, finishing undefeated, won the Fiesta Bowl, and especially Auburn as the SEC champion, undefeated. Why is USC the national champion? To me, it's USC and Auburn for sure, and you can make a point for Utah. Gotcha. Tim's letting us know USC was undefeated in 04. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because they played Oklahoma. Oklahoma and USC were 1 and 2 in the preseason poll, and Auburn was like 19. They all won. And of course, the way it worked back then, if you won, you kept your spot, and Auburn just happened to be third in line. That's what it came down to. Auburn was third in line. Now, in hindsight, everyone would have wanted to see a USC Auburn bowl game for the BCS championship, but we got a 55-19 game. So, yeah, USC finished undefeated in 04, but so did Auburn and Utah. So Roger Dodger says no one wanted to see USC beat Auburn again. I remember that those two schools did play a home and home series at that point. So did USC, was that in 2003 that USC beat Auburn? Yes. They beat Auburn 23-0 at Auburn the year before. Cous's Corner. Friday night, we got West Virginia football talk for all of you at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Our guy, Justin, Cous's Corner. Join him right here on YouTube. Look him up. West Virginia football talk. Loves college football. Does a great job there. ...2007, I know the West Virginia loss was ugly, but considering what I just ran down a few seconds ago concerning the 07 season, I've got West Virginia with a slice of the national championship. And I know that's messy, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and they don't want to deal with 6 teams won a national championship. Well, in 2007, they should have. Because we had a faulty system, and we did not have a playoff. John says if the playoffs expand, it's going to be 12 teams because it's the only way to save the bowls and make the first round interesting. Man, I like everything. Boy, excuse me. I like everything about the 12-team proposal except for one major issue, and that's we've got to have bye weeks, and there are teams that receive byes, and that's not fair. And for everybody that's listened to my spiel a zillion times, I'm going to say it quickly here again, and you can roll your eyes, and everybody else can hear it for the first time. This is why byes do not work in college football. They work in the NFL. I don't even like them in the NFL, but I understand them because when the Kansas City Chiefs go 13-3 and the Pittsburgh Steelers go 10-6, and they both are division winners, you can look at the Kansas City Chiefs clearly earned a bye with 13 wins over a team that won 10 games because their schedules are so similar that they earned the bye. They probably played 10 or 11 of the same teams out of those 16 and now 17 games in the NFL. Okay. They don't work in college football because we're going to have a committee determine who the top 4 seeds are that receive the byes, and they're going to have to make a judgment call between team number 4 and team number 5, and that's a huge determination to make. The power that the committee holds now is determining which 4 teams make it. their power going forward, if there's a 12-team playoff, is not going to be the 12 teams that make it, because that's going to be not obvious, but they can't screw that up. I should probably not go that far, but they almost can't screw up a 12-team playoff in terms of the selection of the teams. Because if you can't make a 12-team playoff, you just don't deserve it. You know, and I'm not saying, I'm not going to be here arguing saying team number 12, that shouldn't have been 12. They should have been 12. The team that finished 14, they were really 12 because of, and I'll lay it out, because they beat this team and that team, and they've got, I'm not saying they can't mess up a spot, but if you can't make a 12-team playoff, then just shut up. They're going to get the 12 teams right, or at least 10 out of the 12 or 11 out of 12. So all the teams that should be in the playoff are going to be there. That's their power trip has shifted from selecting the 4 teams to, okay, any knucklehead is going to be able to figure out generally the 12 best teams in the country. Where the committee's power is going to shift is determining what 4 conference champions make it to the first 4 seeds as bye teams, versus that the difference between seed number 4 and seed number 5, because suddenly if you're seed number 5, you got to play the first round. And this is why I don't support buys. No buys. This is why. Okay. Let's say seed number 4, as selected by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, is Oregon. They finished with the Pac-12 championship, and they were the number 4 seed, and they went 12-1. Okay. The 5 seed is Wisconsin. They also went 12-1, and they won the Big Ten championship. So the committee decided Oregon's the 4 seed and Wisconsin's the 5 seed. They both went 12-1, won conference championships. Okay. Well, Wisconsin's going to have to play the 12th place team in the country, the number 12 seed, right? Let's say that's Baylor. Okay. Wisconsin's got a tough game against the number 12 team in the country, Baylor, who finished 10-2. They've got to play Baylor. Oregon, the 4 seed, gets to sit on their rear ends. So we are sitting here on championship Saturday going into Sunday, and the selection's made. Let's say it's December 5th. And so that first round game between Baylor and Wisconsin is 2 weeks away. And then the winner of that game is going to play Oregon, the 4 seed, the next week. Think about this situation. Okay. First and foremost, what is the big advantage of getting a bye? That's obvious. You can't lose. You automatically advance to the second round. That's the big advantage. You can't lose. The other teams have a 50% chance of losing. So suddenly you've determined Oregon as the 4 seed has a 100% chance of winning and advancing. Wisconsin, the 5 seed, 1 seed below, has only a 50% chance of winning. Okay, that's the big advantage. But beyond that, Wisconsin's going to have to play and possibly suffer a serious injury or 2. So they could be missing players for that game against Oregon in the second round, where Oregon, unless there's a freak injury during practice, is going to be fully healthy. Okay, so injuries. That's point number 2, injuries. Point number 3 is wear and tear. So related to injuries is wear and tear. Wisconsin's going to play a physical opponent, a good team in Baylor, the week before they play Oregon. Oregon's going to be completely fresh. They're going to have 3 weeks off. So the wear and tear factor. Wisconsin's not going to be 100%. They may have major injuries, and even if they don't, they're going to be beat up. Oregon's going to be fresh. And really, my 4th point is the biggest point of why buys do not work in this situation, and it's this. Selection Sunday is December 5th. The second round game is going to be in 3 weeks. The first round game is going to be in 2 weeks. Okay. For that entire time, Wisconsin cannot worry about Oregon. They've got to play Baylor. They got to focus on a really good team. And so all their resources are going to be focused on Baylor and Baylor on Wisconsin, because that's the game they got to play. Oregon gets to think, okay, we think Wisconsin's going to win. Let's devote 70% of our preparation for Wisconsin and 30% for Baylor. Oregon, in this situation, in this scenario we've played out, they are going to have 3 weeks to prepare for Wisconsin and Baylor, where Baylor and Wisconsin have to focus on each other. And then on top of that, Oregon, Dan Lanning and his staff, is going to be able to watch Wisconsin and Baylor play. So you talk about great game tape. They're going to get to see them play the week before that they play them. It's too much of an unfair advantage to be gifting buys in college football when these teams don't overlap in schedules. In the NFL, it makes sense. It's based on valid criteria and valid metrics and overlapping schedules. In college football, you're comparing teams from 5 different conferences that don't play each other, and it does not work. And we've got a call coming in here to the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, Mark, 28 AD.
Hey, how's it going? It's been a while.
It's going. Yeah, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, we're hanging in. Not too bad. Trying to get through the blahs of college football season being gone with some college basketball.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that's about it. Hey, man, I just wanted to call and ask a couple questions for you. I know you're doing the big ranking all-time teams. And so I just had a couple questions for you. National championships. Do you think we have to be careful when we relitigate those things? Because the people who voted and chose the teams they chose did that in real time. And now for us to come back 20, 30 years later and say, well, that team was 11-1, they deserve a shot at it. But they didn't deserve a shot at it back in 1972 or whenever it was, or 1980, right? Because maybe the schedule wasn't strong, or there was some reason why that team wasn't chosen. So do you think it's fair that we relitigate that now?
This is why I do think it is. We can look at the schedules and determine strength of schedule. So we can do that. We also need to understand that for as much as I get on the AP poll and the AP voters, if I was in that role, I would have to, at the end of a college football season in 1980, just throwing out a year, I'd have to list my 25 teams as well. Well, 20 at that point, but anyway, 25 teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if I thought, okay, well, I got 3 teams here, and I think I would love to see them play, but one went to the Rose Bowl, one went to the Sugar, and one went to the Orange, and they won their games, and they both, all 3 finished 11-1. I would like to see them play, but I'm forced to order them. I would love to do what I'm doing and split the national championship and say, you know what, you all earned it. Yeah, I can't differentiate between 3 11-1 teams from major conferences that won those conferences and won major bowl games. So all 3 of you get a split national championship. No, I just got to vote. So I'm not blaming them, but I'm just saying this is, I think, much more fair than just saying one team's got to be at number 1. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other teams that had just as good a resume.
So why weren't those teams chosen back then? Like, for instance, in '84, we look at BYU.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people complain that BYU won the championship that year. But if we go by the criteria that they're the only 12-0 team, then they're clearly a deserving champion in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to go
BYU,
back and relitigate it now,
well, for people that fall in love with a record and just say, okay, a record is all that matters, then BYU, they would name BYU the national champion. Okay. They went 13-0. Nobody else was undefeated. Do you feel confident in naming BYU as the lone national champion when they did not play a team ranked in the top 40 in the country the whole season? And they played a Michigan team in a bowl game that was 6-6.
yes. Yeah, I can understand it. I just don't think we should relitigate those things.
Why?
Because those folks who watched it, the folks who voted,
I watched it.
in real
I
time.
was there. I watched it.
True. Okay, true. Yeah.
So
true.
I was even
So let's
watching
say-
the Holiday Bowl thinking, why is this team going to win a national championship? They're playing before Christmas and they're playing the worst Michigan team.
2017.
That is the worst Michigan team from 1967 to 2008. That is the worst Michigan team. And that's not BYU's fault. I'm not trying to take away
Right.
a national championship. I'm just adding other national champions to them.
Right. Understood. So Mark, let me ask you this. So how about 2020? Where does that fit? And this also goes to the question in terms of buys, right? So in
Yes.
2020, we had an uneven season.
Yep.
So you had a conference canceled, right? And then you had the same conference make a rule saying that in order for you to participate in our conference championship games, you have to play X amount of games. When their best team didn't have X amount of games, they reneged on their own rule to benefit that team, to benefit that conference, so they could get into a national championship situation. So 25 years from now,
Yeah.
someone's going to come back and say, how in the hell did a 7-0 team get in a national championship game? They should have never been there. But people watching in real time made a decision and said they were legit. So did they not deserve to be there then? Should we relitigate them being there?
Well, let me ask you this. So for you, why was 7-0 not legit? So take away the Big Ten's decision. So are you simply saying that because the Big Ten instituted a rule and then they reneged on the rule, that's what makes Ohio State's playoff entry illegitimate? Or is it just your own thought that a team that was 7-0 shouldn't have been in the playoff?
I think a team that's 7-0. I question whether a team. I question both of those things. I don't know if a 7-0 team deserves to be in because just like we ripped Notre Dame for sitting on the couch in 2018, they're on the couch. Well, the Big Ten's representatives are on the couch for 5 weeks.
So this is what I found
They're not
funny.
getting injury.
Okay, well, you can look at that two different ways. So I'll give you a few things possibly to think about here. What I found funny at one point is that Jimbo Fisher was complaining because, if I got the record straight, his team went 8-1 in the regular season. And he was saying this team that's 6-0, they shouldn't be in the playoff. Okay.
Right.
First of all, the season originally was 12 games. Okay. Some of those teams did play 11-game seasons like Alabama and Clemson. So Jimbo, your team played a 9-game season. Why is your cutoff magically 9? You played 2 less than other teams in the country, but a team played 2 less than you. But that's not good enough. And something tells me, I can't prove this, but Jimbo, if your team was 7-0 and not 8-1, I think you would be darn well defending them as a playoff worthy team. So these people that have certain arguments based on their current situations, I find ludicrous, because I know that they would be arguing the exact opposite if they were in the other coach's shoes. So that's a bit ridiculous.
And that's true. And that works both ways though. So let's say Ryan Day is 11-0 and Alabama is 5-0.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Ohio State would think? Do you think Ohio State fans would think that Alabama should be in the national championship game at 5-0?
Well, Alabama did win.
That's not a game.
Well, we'll flip it back to what actually happened. Is that, first of all, in regards to the Big Ten's rule, let's understand that that if the Big Ten would have held to its rule, if I was the Big Ten, this is what I would have done. I would have said, we're staying with our rule. Ohio State has to forfeit a game, and they still win the Big Ten championship and still go to the Big Ten championship game. Because what happened was Ohio State was 5-0, and Indiana was like 6-1. Ohio State beat Indiana head to head, and the Big Ten said you had to have 6 games played. Well, give them a forfeited loss. They still win the division and still go to the Big Ten championship game.
True.
So it's like, I don't know, are you a baseball fan?
In the past life, I was.
Okay. You understand that the league batting champion is the player with the highest batting average. And of course, to make it legit, there's a certain minimum number of plate appearances that you have to have. You can't bat 10 times and go 5 for 10 and win a batting championship. You got to have a minimum number of plate appearances. But a genius, and I say this in all due respect, I actually mean this, that a smart person at some point determined, well, a player that doesn't have enough plate appearances, but if they've got a high enough batting average, that if they, let's say they're 27 plate appearances shy of winning or qualifying for the batting championship, if they would have gone 0 for 27 and still have a good enough batting average to win the batting title, shouldn't they win the batting title? Because there's no way they could lose the batting title. So let's give them an 0 for 27. They still have the highest batting average. They're the batting champion. That's the same thing that Ohio State encountered. Give them a loss. They didn't meet the minimum number of games. Give them a loss for all the games that they need to meet the minimum, which is 1. They still win the division. They go to the Big Ten championship game. They make the playoff.
Yeah, I guess they could have done that. I thought the rule was more in the spirit of, to make things more even across the country, we're going to set a standard that says our teams will play so many games so that we're more in line with what everybody else is doing.
Well, that would have been fine if that's what happened.
Was sort of the spirit of the rule.
And that's another thing that's wrong with college football is all the conferences do whatever they want. So that was just the Big Ten kind of legitimizing its own championship, but
scratching its own back to some degree,
I just think it's ridiculous that in a season in which teams were playing all different numbers of games, that Jimbo Fisher's complaining about a team that played 7 games when his team played 9 games and other teams played 11 games. So, and if you're in the Ohio State corner, and I've heard this, and I think it could be legit, but I also think it could be just a bunch of fluff. They would argue that their team didn't get nearly enough reps to be ready for a playoff and didn't play consecutive weeks and were rusty.
See, when I hear that, though, because I have some Ohio State friends who we've had discussions, we've gone round and round about it. And because I had one buddy tell me the same thing, and my response to him is, then why are you trying to get in the playoff if you're rusty? And if you're not ready, then why are you lobbying to be in it? Just say you're not ready and don't play in it. But don't play in it and then lose and then come back and say, oh yeah, we were rusty. They weren't rusty the night they played Clemson. They looked brilliant the night they played Clemson. There's no rust there at all, right?
Sure.
But don't lose and then come back and say we were rusty.
Well, I'm thinking that, yeah, for those Ohio State fans that just said that, excusing their national championship loss, shame on them. Right. I'm saying that some Ohio State fans, and I also made just that claim in defense of people saying you should not have been in the playoff because you were fresher. So once that argument's thrown in your face, I'm just countering it with the other argument that, yes, that's one way to look at it, but you can also look at it this way. These players do need game reps. I wasn't using that as an initial excuse for losing the national championship game. I was only using that as a counter argument to people that said they were fresher than everyone else.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Mark, I have one more question for you. What happened to the final result of the conference comparison? I know you've done a video series where you looked at like the MAC and the AAC and the Power 5 conferences and a bunch of Group of 5 conferences, and assigned them all point totals.
Yes.
To figure out who played the best in 2021.
Yes.
And rank them out. What was the final result on that?
The final result of that is I did 10 videos for 10 conferences. I think I also did a introductory video. So that's 11 videos. And not a whole lot of people were watching the videos. So I said in the last video, I said, if this, I forget what I made I made some kind of estimation on some kind of determination on, this is going to take a lot more work to produce this final video. So I need X number of views on this video to produce a final video. And that didn't happen. So I wasn't going to put in, 6 or 7 hours of work to produce a video that nobody watches.
So do you know who finished where?
Well, I've got all the numbers. Yeah. I know.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious as to who finished where in that. So do you think you'll ever do a final video on that?
I don't think so. I don't think that enough people really care about it. I can't list them off the top of my head from 1 through 10. I could take a stab at it, but I don't want to be out of order.
Okay.
I may go back next year to do it the way I used to do it. I wanted to include all of college football because I think that's the way to do it, is to include the Group of 5 as well, because as we know, there are dozens of teams in the Group of 5 that are better than some teams in the Power 5. But before, I was just taking the results of all the Power 5 games and coming up with a formula that weighted those games. And then I was very transparent to say, this is not a ranking of all these conferences. It's a ranking of how well they played against each other, because I'm not including Group of 5 results.
Right. Yeah, I always liked that series with the comparison of the conference, because I remember you.
Oh, hey, shoot. I was trying to hang up the call that was coming in, the personal call, and I cut out our guy. Let's see if I can get it back here.
That was an invalid number. Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show.
So 288028. My apologies. I was trying to I heard the beep of the personal call coming in. I was trying to end that.
Manage your callers from the Collins Studio web interface.
So anyway, anyone can call in if they would like. We do have another call coming in here, the voice of college football. And I enjoy doing those as well. I just think that most of our traffic involves people that want to hear speculation about coaching changes and quarterback battles and recruits that just signed and things like that. And I would love to make this very much a ratings and rankings list-oriented main channel here. But again, not a lot of people are into that. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Oh, did I hear you correctly? Brigham Young didn't play a top 40 ranked team all year. Is that correct?
Something like that.
Just want to make sure I heard
top
that
35
right.
or 40, something in that range.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what
Well,
the
that's
number
not
was.
accurate, but not
Okay.
accurate. but
Okay,
whatever.
Chris, you were here to tell us
I don't
exactly
know.
what the accuracy is. What did they play? The number 37 team in the country. They did not play a contending team in college football. How's that? They did not
Okay,
play
well,
a good
at any rate,
team. They didn't play a good team. They didn't play a
played a good
team
team the
that
whole
was
year.
close to a top 25 team in the country. How about that?
No?
No, they didn't.
Okay, well. Air Force is pretty close to being a top 25, but that's okay. Whatever, Mark. I mean, I have them number 27 final. I have them
Okay.
actually behind.
That was the best team that they
Tennessee.
played, the number 27 team in the country. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's about right. Yeah. And then I actually have Hawaii in the top 40, which I think is probably fair given the
Okay.
relative strength of schedule and all that.
All right.
There's at least two. If you let me carry over from the previous season, which I don't know if you really want me to.
No,
but if you,
that's not
okay. Well,
legit.
I'm just saying if you do,
I
you
don't.
don't want me to. That's
No,
fine.
we
But
don't
if you
want-
do,
no, we don't
Pittsburgh.
want to
Well,
do
would
that.
include-
We're not. If we want to talk about the 1984 national championship, we're not talking about games that happened in 1983. That's moronic.
Oh no, but you said I think you said a good estimate of a top would be the final ranking of a team entering into the next season, which would include
Why?
at 40. But
What?
8-4-1, I think, and they were a top 40 team.
I'm not evaluating
ranking, or-
teams in 2021 for games that happened in 2020.
That's fine, but
Those
I'm
are
just
two
letting you
separate
know
seasons.
that would. I understand that, but I think in another broadcast you said something that a good estimate of where a team might start would be where they finish.
Oh,
the
well,
previous
sure.
season. I don't, maybe I misunderstood it.
Sure, George is good
Okay.
every year.
Well,
We can
then that
expect
would
them to be
include
good
Pitt,
the
then.
next year. Yeah, but I'm
Okay,
not basing a
okay.
national championship evaluation based on results from another season. I can give
Okay.
an estimation of what teams are good. Like if we're going to
Okay.
project toward 2022, I'm going to say Ohio State should be good and Alabama should be good and Georgia should be good. Why? Because they're always good. And Michigan State should be
Okay.
pretty good because they were good last year. Yeah, teams generally, some of them change considerably,
Yeah,
but most of them
relatively.
stay the same. But we're not going
I think
to, it would be
Air Force was 12-1.
it would be
previous season. I think they were
illegitimate
12-1.
to judge a national championship season based on games that happened the year before. Those are not games that factor into that season. That I shouldn't even have to explain that. That's a complete waste of time to even explain why you're judging a national championship race on games that are played the season before. It's not a 2-year
What's your
national
estimation of
championship.
Virginia Tech, then? Was Virginia Tech? I mean, I don't know.
What
Not
about
good, I guess.
Virginia Tech?
Just throwing, would they be considered a quality opponent, or
Virginia
I mean,
Tech
you can tell me
when?
if you think so or
Virginia
not.
Tech now? Virginia Tech in 1996? Yeah, they were really good. They won the Sugar Bowl. It depends what
Bruce
year
Smith.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech with Bruce Smith.
Okay.
That team.
Yes.
That team. Okay, well, that's who Air Force beat in the. I think it was the. I
Okay.
can't remember what bowl it was, but that's who Air Force.
Yeah.
Well,
What's Air Force have to do with it?
I think Air Force. That's who they beat.
BYU beat
That's how
Air
Air Force
Force.
finished.
Yes, we're going by the 7 degrees of okay.
No.
BYU
I'm just asking you,
did not play a good schedule. It's not their fault, but they did not play a good schedule.
Okay. Oh, the other thing I was going to just remind you about, and it's not really worth arguing about, but for as bad as Michigan apparently was, which is what you're saying
I
repeatedly,
didn't say they were bad.
they surrendered 6.
I didn't say they
Well,
were
yeah, you
bad.
kinda did.
I'm saying that's not the type team that should be playing a team that's gunning for a national championship. Like if we would have reached the final game of this season and said, you know what, we're going to have Alabama, the number 1 team in the country. We're going to have them play. Let's see who finished 6-6.
UAB. No, it'd been UAB.
Yeah,
Whatever.
UAB. That's
No,
going to be
well,
their
that was-
national championship opponent. I don't think that would have
Yeah,
satisfied
Birmingham
anyone.
lost, so. No, I don't either.
Okay.
I don't either. Okay. Anyway, let's just pretend. Let's play make believe. I kind of like playing make believe sometimes. I like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay.
let's make believe that Illinois hadn't lost to Missouri or UCLA and finished 12-0. What's your estimation? Just make believe. It's
Yeah.
pure make believe.
They would have been the national champion.
12-0. What's your? Okay, those are two teams that BYU beat in 1983.
Okay, but Illinois beat a lot of other teams. Those aren't the best.
True.
But those aren't the best teams that Illinois beat.
I don't know, Mark. I mean, generally when a team wins, that's kind of evidence of being better. I don't know. I mean, so Missouri and UCLA weren't the best two teams that they beat. Okay.
No, they weren't.
I guess that. Who were then? That's kind of a crazy argument. I don't know. Whatever.
Why is it a crazy argument?
Go ahead. Well, because BYU beat both those teams and finished 11-1, and were, I think, 7th in the final.
First of all, you are taking a huge leap in throwing Illinois into this. They did lose 2 games, and they lost the Rose Bowl by 36 points. So they were clearly not good enough to win a national championship. But I'm gifting you 2 games that they lost, and Missouri went 3-7-1.
No, that was the next year.
In 1984, Missouri went 3-7-1. Why are we even talking about this?
I'm talking about 83.
You're
Mark.
substantiating.
I'm talking about 84.
We're not talking about. Why are we talking about 1983 now? Your claim is about BYU in 1984.
Generally, I think you just told me that generally a team that's good generally doesn't lose.
Are you serious?
A whole lot of steam.
Why? What? I'm going to say this one more time.
Yeah.
We are not arguing about a national championship season using games from another season. That is moronic. Okay. Our show is a little bit above that. If you want to be that stupid, go talk to somebody else, because that is the stupidest thing imaginable, that you discuss a national championship race based on games that happened in another season. That's beyond moronic. It makes no sense. Chris, please say something. Chris, the next thing out of your mouth, please have it make some sense, or we need to end the phone call, because you just ramble on about stupid things that make no sense.
Who won the belt in 1985?
I don't care who won the belt. Nobody cares who won the belt. You're substantiating a team's national championship based on a game that didn't even happen that season. That makes no sense.
No, I'm going to draw a parallel. I'm going to draw a parallel if you let me. Maybe you won't. I don't know. Maybe you won't. Okay, it was Alabama. They won it by beating USC 24-3, which is actually a pretty definitive, a doubly definitive. But I don't know, you might not understand what I'm getting at.
I think you're skipping up to 1985 now. Now you're skipping up to 1985.
No, that was the belt champion.
That's when that game happened, right? Alabama and USC played in the Aloha Bowl in 1985. That's what you're talking about, right?
I'm not done drawing the parallel yet. I'm not like in 1984, it was Southern Methodist and Notre Dame. Notre Dame secured not a belt, but something kind of like it by beating LSU, who tied Florida, by the way. I don't know if that really matters to you, but so in a way, what they were playing for was kind of a title there between Southern Methodist and Notre Dame, and Southern Methodist won. Southern Methodist 2 losses were to Houston and to Texas. Both those teams, it's not like head to head, but both those teams, you could draw a line straight back to BYU. Baylor beat Texas 24-10. Tulsa beat, I think who was it Tulsa beat? I think Tulsa beat, I'm having a blank right now. Anyway, Tulsa beat someone that Indiana State is who it was. Yeah, they beat Indiana State. Indiana State, I think, beat Louisville. Louisville beat Houston. If you don't like that one, which is you probably won't.
No, I don't
anyway,
like that.
That's where that one comes from.
You're going like 9 teams away to try to make a proof, and half the teams you bring up are not good teams. You're substantiating national championships based on teams that went 3-7-1. Who in the world would do that? Alabama's not Alabama or Georgia in winning national championships the last 2 years because of beating bad teams. No, we don't look at Georgia's national championship and say they're the national champion this year because they beat Vandy and they beat South Carolina. That's not what made Georgia the national championship team. They're the national champion because they beat good teams like Michigan and Alabama and Arkansas and Tennessee, not because they beat Vandy.
Would it impress you if Georgia Tech beat a top-ranked Alabama team in the opening game? Would that impress you? If that happened, I'm just saying, if that happened.
We're talking about like next season?
Just a hypothetical. Yeah, next season, whenever.
If Georgia Tech beat, okay,
a top-ranked Alabama team, would that impress you?
If Alabama turned out to be that good, yes. If they turned out to go
9-2-1, 9-2-1. They finished 9-2-1.
Okay, what's this have to again? What's that have to do with BYU? You defending BYU's national championship in 1984?
Well, Georgia Tech did that in 1981. They finished 1-10, but they beat a top-ranked Alabama team, and they finished 1-10. And I guess that doesn't matter because they
What's
finished 1-10.
What's that have to do with BYU in 1984? Georgia Tech and Alabama playing in 1981.
Well, I think it matters. Is my point.
How? How?
Georgia Tech beat a top-ranked.
You make no sense,
1981.
Chris. I just don't have the patience for idiocy tonight. Good night.
They're not. If you.
I have no patience for morons tonight. I've got no. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Oh, I try to be kind. I try to be nice. And when you are bringing up games of insignificance in 1981 to defend a 1984 national championship, that makes no sense whatsoever. And it looks like we've got to block somebody in the. There we go. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, and please let it be about anything but 1984 BYU.
Mark, it's George. How you doing?
George, how's it going?
Good. I was asking the guys in the chat what I should talk about and get out of the John Boy suggested pickup trucks and getting drunk. And I said, how about rollerball? Do you know anything about rollerball?
Rollerball, I don't.
I don't either, so we're good. But it still changed the subject. We're off that, whatever the hell you were talking about before. I did it. I changed the subject. How about Kentucky women's basketball? I think they won the SEC.
Yeah. How about that?
I only know that because of your chat.
I know it because I heard from the real MVP. There was a time in my life, George, when I had to cover women's basketball, but I got paid for it. So
yeah,
that time is not now.
And even then it was just a job. It wasn't heartfelt. Was it?
No, the games were boring, but very nice people. The coaches were nice. I interviewed the coaches on a regular basis and all that. I covered SEC women's basketball for like 7 years. Absolutely. And it wasn't the worst job in the world. I was not digging a ditch or anything, so it was not hard. It was fine.
It's all relative.
But it was,
it's all relative.
I couldn't, be covering SEC football every week. I had to cover women's basketball and some little soccer and softball and some other things. Softball was fun. It was just getting started then.
Hey, as far as what that guy said, who was that? Something about pickup trucks and getting drunk. There's a guy named Scotty something on the internet talks about cars, like the greatest mechanic ever, Scotty Kilmer. I mean, I watch one of his videos today. I've known him for years. I don't look at it all the time. He'll just tell you all kind of crazy shit about any kind of car and you'll be like, wow, I never knew that. But today he said if he was going to buy a used pickup truck, he'd buy a used Toyota Tundra. He said he knows people that have driven them 500,000 miles. That's pretty good. A 500,000 mile vehicle. Now that's with repairs, but they're the minimal repairs over the life of a 500,000. And I have two relatives that own them. And I can tell you it's for sure. The big 8-cylinder Toyota Tundras, if you ever have to buy a used car, just mind-boggling what they can do.
Well, based on inflation, I'm trying to stay away from buying a car these days.
Mm-hmm. It's expensive. Yeah, it was expensive before. Now it's just almost out of the question. Like getting a helicopter or a private jet or something, a used truck, Anyway, I live in Portland, and my gas was $4.09 6 days ago. And then it went to $4.19. and then it went to 439, and now it's 459. And I've been missing a quarter. I'm a quarter tank down all this time. I'm watching this shit, and I'm like, damn, 50 cents a gallon more in a week. I guess I should have did that quarter tank 5-6 days ago and saved $4, right? Is it like that where you live?
Yeah, I passed 439 yesterday.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's jumping.
It makes me laugh. Hey, instead of stressing out about it, I've thought about this, and here's what we should all do. We should all tell ourselves, okay, so there goes an extra $40 a week or whatever it comes out to, depending on how much you drive, right?
Yeah.
And just let it go, because otherwise it's just going to stress you out and ruin your day. And I've personally cut out potato chips. I don't eat potato chips anymore. That goes to gas money now. And I don't smoke as much weed as I used to, but I don't care.
You got to make those sacrifices.
Exactly. Now, I want to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, and I know you've seen crazier shit in football than this, but on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the possibility Oregon could beat Georgia on the first game next year? Because crazy stuff happens sometimes in football, so we got to give them at least a 2 or a 3.
2 or 3? I was going to go 10 or 15.
That's what I'm saying. We got to give them something. You know, there's a chance. I don't like it where everyone just is predisposed to think Georgia's automatically going to win. That's not true.
Wouldn't that be something if Oregon won that game? That would be a great way to get the season started, shake things up a little bit.
Bo Nix would get like a lifetime Nike Jordan contract. He better win that game. You remember Auburn gave up all their quarterbacks to get Bo Nix, and Bo Nix's dad was on staff, and it was a big controversy. And then Bo Nix's dad's a businessman. He saw an opportunity to go to Oregon. Like, screw Auburn. Bo, if you can beat Georgia next year, we'll be Nike representatives for eternity. I don't know what it is. I just want Georgia to lose. I'm an SEC fan. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to always cheer for SEC teams if they're playing anyone outside of conference, but I just can't do that with Georgia.
The other conferences don't play that game.
Yeah, the SEC does sometimes. There's fan police that go in the chats, and they're like, you can't do that. You're not an SEC fan. They're fan police. They're out there. All right. I've seen in the chat everybody saying they can't believe you stayed on this long. How long have you been on?
I haven't been on that. 2 hours and 23 minutes. It has been a while. What are we looking at? 12:30. Nowhere near the record,
Wow.
that's for sure.
I didn't notice. I was sitting there with my kid watching a movie. I didn't see the notification. When I saw it, I clicked on it. MVP24 just asked me, have you seen that? I didn't. I did that sticker when you get gas, and I haven't seen it because I ain't got gas yet, but I know what he means. That's hilarious. They're keeping us entertained while they make us homeless. Isn't that nice?
When I get Chris on the line, I need to look at the chat while I've got Chris on the phone. Yes.
Every once in a while, if I was you, I would just spin all the way forward because you'll get like an hour and a half behind sometime. You just got to give it all up and just go back to the beginning and start over. Or maybe every 15 minutes for all I know. Because you get way, there's no way you can possibly keep up with the chat. And you know what else I've noticed about YouTube? They're in the animal kingdom, you can only have like 15 cats together in a group. They'll always separate and start their own communities after that. And monkeys are like 20 to 30. And humans actually have a number. I think humans is like 150. In times gone by, our ancestors would always split off after 150. And there's a reason for that, because your brain can't keep track of more than 150 people. If you're living somewhere with more than 150 people around, you can't possibly know who they all are and interface with them on an honest basis. So imagine if you're living in Hong Kong with 8 million people, like you're out of luck there that way.
Where did you
And
come
then,
up
and
with
then
this?
the animals. It's an actual thing. There's a number for every species. A comfortable number. Once you exceed that number, the disease sets in and bad things start happening because it's just not natural. You know, you were never meant to live that way. Now check this out. Here's how I used to say it as a joke. If God wanted 30 kids to spend all day together in a room, women would have litters. You know, kids are supposed to spend their life around 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other kids, you know, and we send them to school. And for 18 years, it's 30 new kids every hour. It's like, what the? Psycho. Not a good start, you know. Plus, imagine you're young and you're interested in something, and every hour the bell rings. Ring! Oh, we're out of here. No more chemistry. We're going to literature now. Oh, time for PE. It's the most absurd way to teach somebody something. Can you imagine that Michelangelo trying to teach someone to paint every hour? Ring! Now we're going to do this. Ring! Now we're going to do that. Ring! Time for recess. Ring! Time for lunch. Ring! Literature. Ring! Study hall. It's ridiculous.
Well, George,
I should talk about these things now because it doesn't matter anymore. It's over.
I got
We're
2
way
other
past
calls
that.
waiting. We appreciate
Good. I was
your
just
social
feeling-
commentary tonight. Update on gas prices.
Love you, Malachi. He said George's national treasure, so I had to give him a shout out. Malachi. All right, see y'all later. Hey, Uncle Rico. Hey, are your glasses repaired yet?
No, I've got my eye doctor's appointment on March 22nd.
They keep giving me notices every few days that it's time to get my eyes done again.
This is just
And
simply
I'm waiting
because.
for them to drop.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for him to drop the mask thing because last time I went in, there's a part of the test where you keep your glasses on, and my glasses kept fogging up. And then the doctor said, "Pull that mask up," and I said, "But I can't see." And she said, "I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to work through it." I'm like, I kept my mouth shut. I did it through fog, you know. But I'm not doing that again.
All right, George.
All right, love you guys.
George at
Go
the
Oregon.
eye doctors. All righty. Have a good one. Thanks, George.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's take these last 2 calls here at the Voice of College Football. We have been on here for 2.5 hours. I want to catch up with these super chats. I appreciate all of them coming in. We got Uncle Rico. Appreciate you. And Matt B. Our man BGPO Football Funk. And, of course, Kyle out of the gate. I don't think I missed any there. Appreciate these super chats. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Good evening, Mark. It's J-Dub come from Des Moines. How are you doing this evening?
J-Dub, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Hey, well, I can't believe the combination that I just had to endure. First, I had no idea that when I was a freshman at Alabama and we won the Sun Bowl 24, the Hula Bowl, or whatever the hell it was, 24-3 over USC, that would somehow impact the 1984 BYU National Championship. My God, that on behalf of the chat, please, for the love of God, this guy, don't call in again. Thank you. And then to follow up the combination, I get George, which is like a ball peen hammer to the skull. And, oh my Lord! So, if you don't mind, can we talk a little college football?
Absolutely. Let's do it. I will say that the chat loves George. I just don't know what to respond to George half the time because I don't know what he's talking about half the time. And with Chris, this has been an ongoing conversation for probably his last 22 phone calls, harping on the 1984 National Championship.
And if just at one time in those 22 phone calls, you could make 15 seconds of sense, it might be tolerable.
Yeah, I haven't found this.
With George, you never know. George might call in and talk about the fact that the gravity on Mars is 34% of that of Earth, or 37%. Who knows? Yeah, I wanted to ask you. You're a big fan of the expanded playoffs, or you advocate that.
Yes.
I like the 4. I know there's problems. I agree with you on what some of the problems are, but I'm comfortable with 4.
Okay.
I in no way, shape, or form. I mean, I'll puke if we go to 12. If we go to 8, we've got the 5 Power 5 champs and then 3 at-larges. What I hear about people who are advocating 8 is that you get the quarterfinal rounds on college campuses. Well, I would like your thoughts on that, because if you're going to continue to have a regular season the way it is, and you're going to play your conference championship games, then that means necessarily you're going to play the quarterfinal round the 2nd or 3rd week of December. And I don't know about Columbus, but in most places, there are no students on campus the 2nd or 3rd week of December. So what's the, you know what I'm trying to say? I'd love it. I'd love the home crowd there. You know, I'd love Columbus, Athens, Bryant Denny. I'd love all the students to be there to see the quarterfinal round. But how do you jerry rig the schedule to make that happen?
So I love that too. I want to see some college football playoff games on campus, especially when we're playing that many games. If it would go out to 12 teams and we're playing whatever that turns out to be, like 13 games played, I don't want to see them all in NFL dome stadiums. So I do love the idea of the games on campus to start. But you're the first person that I've heard bring that up. It didn't cross my mind of what students are going to be on campus at that point in December. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it might be great for the local fans, or the you know, some of the alumni or whatever. But you know, so much of the atmosphere of the game is, you know, even though they're a percentage-wise a small percent in some stadiums, you know, like for instance, Bryant Denny, you've got 100,000 people in Bryant Denny, but only 15,000 of those are Bama students. So your percentage is you know, not that great. But then there'll be none of them there. They'll be gone. You know, they're home on break. So how do you avoid that? Do you take a week out of everybody's regular season and say we're just going to play 11 now, and so because we need to make this quarterfinal round get bumped forward, get yanked backwards to the first week of December, and then we're gonna play the quarterfinal round during finals week? I mean, there's a lot going on there.
So right now we're looking at a conference championship weekend right around December 4th or 5th is usually when that game is. So if these teams don't take a week off, then to your point, they're playing around the 11th or 12th of December. If they take a week off and then the playoffs start with a week off, which I think would be best for the players, then they're playing more like the 17th, 18th in that range. And they definitely don't have any students on campus. So if you back it up a week and you give everybody a week off between conference championship games and the playoffs, then they're still playing around the 12th. And my daughter was just in college for 4 years. And if I remember correctly, that's about the time, she was out the door. So you'd really have to back up the schedule.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How do you do that? You know, move everything back a week without taking a regular season bye week out of the schedule, or an entire game out of the regular season schedule. I don't understand how you do that. And if you do that, you're telling everybody that's playing FBS, you're going to now have one less game to accommodate these 8 teams at the end of the year.
Exactly. So you are forfeiting 100.
So there's all sorts of,
Yeah, you're forfeiting 122 games for those 122 teams for the benefit of 8 teams. So Georgia Southern could care less about a playoff, or, Nevada, or fill in the blank. You're costing them a game, and it may be for half the teams, it's going to be a home game and the revenue from a home game. So you're going to have to share the wealth from expanded playoffs with those schools to make it worth their while and for them to sign off on it. You could also think about
Yeah, you
starting
think
everybody on week 0 instead of week 1 after the, Labor Day weekend, starting that last weekend of August.
Yeah, you think Central Michigan would like to have a regular season home game taken away from them every other year? I guarantee you they don't.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or anything here. I'm just trying to bring up the fact that when people say, well, we'll just go to 8 or we'll go to 12 and then we'll do there's all sorts of unforeseen logistics that come into play here. It's not just, well, it's going to be, I'm going to feel satisfied if we do this. I mean, every time one of these teams goes on the road, they take the band, they take the there's just, it's so convoluted. It's not as easy as just saying, well, bingo, let's go to 8,
Well, I know, J-Dub, that I worked out, I took the calendar. This was, who knows, this was, 10,000 videos ago somewhere, 6-7 years ago, whenever it was. And I went through the calendar and I devised a 16 team playoff. And I did a regular season with a bye week, formatted regular season with 1 bye week for everyone, conference championship game, take 1 week off, start the playoff. And we were done by like January 10th. Let's see. If we look at a 2022 schedule or calendar, wonder if that could be worked out.
Okay.
And basically what you got in, let's blow this up. So if they play on, so we need 13 weeks to play 12 games, correct? So that's 4 weeks in September. October, there are 5 Saturdays in October. So that's 5 and 4 is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the last Saturday, the 26th of November, is the last week of the regular season. So then we've got the conference championship games on December 3rd. We've got a bye week or an off week on the 10th, and everybody starts playing playoffs on the 17th. So if we have an 8-team round on the 17th, then we've got our final 4 on Christmas Eve, and we actually have a championship game on. Actually, we finish a lot sooner than we'd space that out. Looks like there's plenty of weeks.
Yeah, if you just want to have the bye between the conference championships and the quarterfinals, then you go to the 17th. And then if you're going to say, well, we'll play on Christmas Eve, and then you're looking at December 31st. If you're going to stay Saturday, you're looking at December 31st for your championship game.
So actually, the season would be over
Saturday.
The season would be over about 10 or 12 days before it is right now.
Yeah. And then where are you going to have the games? So you're going to have them on campus. Well, then nobody whose students are on campus on the 17th. I mean, there's all sorts of things involved. I mean, I remember a couple years ago when Iowa State went down to Orlando and got crushed by Notre Dame. And a good friend of mine's daughter was in the Cyclone marching band, and that was an amazing ordeal. It took them 4 big Greyhound buses to move the band, and so how much of an expense was it for the university to put all these kids on a couple hundred kids on buses, 4 buses. Took them a day and a half to drive from Ames down to Orlando. They go down there and they, have one day at Disney World or whatever. They turn around and they got to drive all back and everything. So, and all these things that are involved, you've got to move your equipment. You've got to move the players. You're moving the medical staff. You're moving you've got to do hotels. You've got to there's so much involved in doing the game other than just, we're sitting at home and we turn on the TV and we go, oh, good, I'm satisfied that we're down to 8 because that makes me feel good. Okay, well, there's a whole lot going on, you know, and that's why I say it's real easy, and I'm guilty of it. I'm as guilty as anybody else, just going, well, I like this. Let's just keep it this way, or let's make this change or whatever, without realizing that any change you make one way or the other is going to affect this, and that's going to affect this, and you start a ball rolling every time you do that.
Actually, the way we just laid it out, I would give these student athletes Christmas off. I treat them like actual students and say you can actually spend Christmas with your families, and each team's going to handle that differently. And then you come back and you play the semifinal games on New Year's Eve, and then you play a championship game on about the 9th or 10th.
Right. And then which brings up a point I have meant to ask you several times. A lot of people say, what are we doing playing college football's national championship on Monday? Well, because the Shield controls Saturday and Sunday, and they're not going to bump up against the Shield, you know.
Sure.
The mighty NFL controls the weekend. So what do you do there? Do you keep your championship game on Monday because of as I don't see the university presidents and the ADs wanting to get into that kind of a fight where they're trying to air their game, against the NFL.
I would play on Friday night. I try to work out a Friday night because right now we've got these games kicking off at what time? 8:20, and they're playing until midnight. And
that's tough for the Eastern time zone. Yeah.
Yeah. God forbid if you want to. Yeah, I'm thinking Eastern time zone. God forbid if you want to just relax after the game, and even if you don't care who won, but just hear what the comments say and see some analysis and see the championship trophy get hoisted and all that stuff. You just don't want to turn the game off as soon as it's over. You're up at 12:45 in the morning, and you got to go to work. You got to get up at 5 o'clock. Who knows at what time in the morning to go to work? Well, a lot of people aren't that invested and crazy enough to get 4 hours of sleep. So I don't know why we can't play national championship games on Friday. We did for a while. I don't know at one point that I'm sure I can Google it. At what point that stopped.
Yeah, just another thing where, the logistics, it's not the first thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking about the game, but then you start to go into a bit of the details, Well, that's right. We do play on Monday. Why do we play on Monday? Why don't we, and, great point. Play it on Friday. And it doesn't matter if you're up till 12:30, if you're an East Coast person, Yeah.
There's always people that have to work. You can't accommodate every person in America, but you're accommodating 90-some%.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because even in I live in the Central Time Zone. Even for us, it's you're going to watch the trophy and you hear what some of the talking heads say. It's midnight for sure. By the time that gets wrapped up,
Sure.
It's not a problem for Los Angeles. Not a problem for Los Angeles, but for everybody, let's say east of Denver, it can be a little uncomfortable.
And I would actually say,
Mark, I know you got another.
Well, I would actually say, just to wrap it up on the front end of that more people are typically able to get out of work early on a Friday than they are on a Monday if they live on the West Coast to see the beginning of the game that's kicking off at 5:15 in the afternoon.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, it's a lot easier to take that last hour off on a Friday than tell the boss that you're going to come in an hour late on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, everybody, if you haven't done so already, you don't want to send Mark any money. You're being too cheap, or you can't afford to pass up that next Coke at the convenience store. The thumbs up button doesn't cost you anything. Mash that thing before you leave. Show appreciation.
Thanks,
Mark. I appreciate it. As always, very entertaining.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks, J-Dub. Have a good night.
You too.
We will take these last two calls here at the Voice of College Football. It's going to be one more call, but I hate to leave somebody out there. So please, no more calls. We'll take these last two. Thanks for calling the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing tonight, sir?
Michael, I'm doing well. What's going on?
Not much. Slowly regaining my credibility from that call from earlier with Chris. Hey, got a question for you to follow up on Jeff and stuff like that. Is there a chance that maybe they could actually start the season a week sooner by any chance? Or will that cut down on practice times and stuff like that? Meaning that most of them start late July. Some schools start practice in July. Could they start earlier in August?
So why do you want to start the season a week earlier?
No, I'm just saying, so the situation, if it goes to 18, like, would it go stuff like that, so you can still get to everything in and stuff like that, get your full 12-game schedule in, get your break, get your conference championship in.
I don't know, Michael, if you heard the previous caller, but we ran through the calendar for 2022. We don't need to do any of that.
Okay.
Just think about that. The conference championship games are the first Saturday of December, so roughly December 4th or 5th. Well, we're not playing a college football playoff game now until New Year's Eve. They've got almost an entire month off. So we fit in an entire 12-game schedule, then the conference championship games with a bye week, conference championship games, then a week off, then played the first round of an 18 playoff, gave them Christmas off, played the semifinals, and had the championship game in the same amount of time that we do now.
Okay. I didn't catch all that because it kept cutting in and out and stuff. I was just wondering stuff like that. Another thing, too, was JJ did they say why McNamara's leaving Michigan?
Who's leaving Michigan?
Or I thought you said something about JJ McNamara.
JJ McCarthy. Let's not mix up our quarterbacks here.
I don't know why again.
So McCarthy got hurt.
Sorry about that.
Those are the reports online.
Okay.
I got a text from somebody this afternoon, and it was right about the time that Barstool Sports, I think, first reported that JJ McCarthy hurt his shoulder and is going to need he's going to need a surgery, and it's not been confirmed or announced by the school, but it's out there all over the place.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that was going on and stuff like that, because I thought I misread that. I thought he was transferring and stuff. I didn't see where he got hurt and stuff. So, no, I was just wondering and stuff like that. All right. Thanks so much for taking my call, Mark. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks, Michael. You too. Appreciate the call.
Take care. Yep.
All right. The final call of the night. Let's make it a stellar one here at the Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark, it's Jimmy from Ohio.
Hey, Jimmy. What's going on?
No, really. I'm not calling back as George. I'm calling back as your portfolio manager.
Jimmy from Ohio.
Yeah. I have an idea. Let me flush this out for you.
Okay, George, you got to understand, if this is going to make me a lot of money, then I'll keep you on the line. If it's not, if you hear a dial tone, don't hold it against me. I love you, George, but one call max.
It's about a sponsor. It's about a sponsor.
Okay, it's about a sponsor. You got my attention.
Right. Now, here's the gig. My son sent me some vitamins the other day, right? And I started taking them. It's been like 6 days. The first day when I woke up the next day, I noticed something that was wrong with me yesterday, and the last 10 years wasn't wrong no more. And I've been doing it for a week. Here's what it is. Quercetin zinc with stinging nettle root, vitamin C and D3. I'm like, what the good shit, Mark. So I'm thinking you could probably get together with these people, with me as a liaison, of course. And I don't want nothing. It's all persona non grata for me, but maybe they give you $1 bottle royalty, any bottle sold through your channel or something. And you could take them for a month first and see if you think this is good stuff or not. I'm like, my eyesight cleared up. My hair's thick and wavy again.
Cortisone what?
On and on and on. It's called quercetin zinc with stinging nettle root, vitamin C, and D3 dietary supplement, 300 vegetarian capsules. I want to tell you where it comes from, but I don't want to ruin the deal. I'll go ahead and do it. I'll give them a shout out. It's from a place called Mount Angel Vitamins. And I know where Mount Angel is. I was a herdsman on the dairy and a milker there for like 10 years. I lived in that farm community, you know.
Mount Angel, what?
There's some Mount Angel Vitamins.
All right. So you feel like $1 million bucks. You've never felt better. This cleared up all sorts of aches and pains.
Well, no, and then honestly, someday I'll tell you the whole hardcore story. I mean, this is serious shit. Like, you know, not just not doing well, and then it was like just one day difference. Now I work every day again. I don't have no more pain. Anyhow, how many subscribers do you have?
Here on the main channel, 33,000. 33,700 something.
33,000.
Yes.
Right. That's why I mentioned about people in groups and animals and herds and proper numbers. Nobody can keep track of 30,000 people. If there was more than 50 people in your chat at one time, it would be going like 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't be able to read their comments. There's a disconnect here between 50,000 fans or 100,000 subscribers because we could never communicate. If 100,000 people were in your chat right now making comments, that thing would be going like 80 miles an hour. You wouldn't be able to read it.
Well, actually, for my sake, let's try that sometime.
Right. Everybody come on one day and let's see what happens. Make a day we're all going to be there, all 50,000 people, and see all hell break loose.
Well, yeah. You can go to some more popular channels and see where somebody's got like 25,000 people watching them. And yeah, the super chats and the chat itself is flipping by like it looks like a pinball machine. You know, everything's just lighting up and it's just going.
And that's with them putting it on slow chat is on. They engage that and it's still going like a steamroller or a Ferrari, like even with slow chat. But, so here's the whole point. Here's me fleshing out my whole idea about doing endorsements, which you should do, and maybe this will work out. But if everybody would just donate $1 a month, we wouldn't have to go through all this shit. You'd get 30,000 a month from 30,000 followers.
Perfect.
And then you could just, yeah. And we can't do that. There's no way to do that. But you know what we can do? We can all join your Patreon page for $12 a month, right?
That's an option.
And you can get 3 of that 5 or
that would
4
be phenomenal.
Of that 5 or whatever the rate is.
Listen to George, everyone. George is on Patreon.
Uncle Rico keeps saying, Uncle Rico has been bugging me for 10 minutes in the chat about OnlyFans. I don't know what it is, but he keeps saying if you were on OnlyFans, it would take off. You know what that is?
OnlyFans? Something else I need to look into.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Yeah. Man, there's only so many hours in the day.
I'll look it up.
He's been very adamant about it, though.
And because
all right, so we can all join.
And George, because you've been invested in the past on the conversation about the merchandise, I got to tell you, I set up merchandise. I should bring on the shirt and the mug that I ordered because I wanted to do a test run to make sure the transaction went through right and to see what the merchandise would look like. Well, the shirts are screwed up because they are embroidered and it messes up the logo. It doesn't look right. So I'm going to have to change that. And then the mug, they sent me a mug and the logo doesn't print right. It's like transparent. It's a black mug and it just looks like a black mug. And when you look real close, you can see that they printed the logo on there, but it's like transparent on a black mug. So you can't see it. So I thought, oh man, back to the drawing board.
All the greatest coins in history are misprints. Maybe you could sell those at like half price and we all buy them in a rare collectibles. I mean, why waste the product if they've already made it? Just tell everybody it was a mistake, that it's a rare collectible. We're not going to make any more of these. We'll get it right next time. But if you want to own the first runoff of Mark Rogers mugs or T-shirts, here's your misprint, you know?
Well,
you never know.
I would like to. You're right about that. Just like misprinted baseball cards, they become popular. But yeah, I would like to actually. I actually wanted to get mugs and shirts and all that stuff into everybody's hands that actually looked right.
You know, I don't know where these porno sites come from. Naked HD XYZ, the best girls in the world.
Yeah, I just blocked them.
You should call YouTube and just leave a scathing message. Oh wait, you can't call YouTube. Never mind.
I don't know if
I'm
I'm
like
going to do
that.
that. Let's see. OnlyFans. We're going to look this up because somebody wanted a screenshot. OnlyFans.
He's mentioned it like 50 times. It must be some, I don't know. I can't even imagine, really. Hope it's good. I think my vitamin thing was good too.
OnlyFans is an internet content subscription service based in London. Content creators can earn money from users who subscribe to their content. The fans, it allows content creators to receive funding directly from their fans on a monthly basis.
Well,
it sounds like
hey, listen, if there's a contract, if there's a contract to be signed between you and anywhere in London, please let me review the contract before you sign it. I might need a few days, but I guarantee you there's something in there you're not going to want to agree to.
Okay. Yeah. I can imagine.
You know how London is. Yeah, we want to help you. Just sign here. No, and 5 years ago, you know we own 95% of your company, right? And you'll go, what are you talking about? They'll go, look, you signed up. Right. See, right there it says, and anything else we want.
My inbox, George, is loaded with, I get at least 10 offers a day from like these. I don't think they're all spam. I think some of them are legit, but they're just like garbage companies that want to like sponsor me, but they all have to do with like affiliate links, and nobody wants to, and you're not really talking to anybody, you know, directly that I can contact. And it's, you know, they send out these generic emails to like YouTube people. And I just get these things every day.
God. Why won't some Las Vegas casino call you and say, we'll back you? This is terrible. We shouldn't be going through this. You've been here long enough. Binions or somebody should be calling you.
Yeah, Vegas
say,
casino.
We'll sponsor your channel.
Yeah.
Our sports book, you know?
Yeah, we'll get it
you
figured
probably
out.
You have too high of a winning percentage on picking those games. That's why they're not engaging you. You need to lose a few games.
Well, I don't know if my percentage is that good.
Not that good. Okay, I thought maybe you're around
it's
65.
good, but I don't think it's that good that it's that threatening. We're not going to say that. All right, Uncle Rico going
exciting.
at it.
Yeah,
I appreciate Uncle
he
Rico.
Just got a $5 super chat.
Yes, Antoine Johnson. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, Antoine.
I think Rico is sincere about the thing based in London, OnlyFans. But please, dear God, be careful. Read that shit twice. Whatever you're going to sign, be careful.
Yeah,
it's like they want to help you, huh? Really? Yeah, be careful.
All right, George. I think we'll pack it up for the night.
Love you, man.
Have a good night out there.
I love all you guys.
Love you too, George.
You too.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Later. Bye. Bye.
Our man George gets in a second call of the night. I'm not supposed to allow that. I'm showing favoritism there. But I will say that George, I would love to know what the number is. But George, Chris is catching him quickly, probably, with his myriad of comments to the channel, which is like 7 per hour. But George definitely has the most comments. I'm not talking about to the call-in show. I'm talking to the channel comments, written comments. George definitely leads all time. It's not close. George has definitely backed us for a long time. George has been around for a long time, backing the voice of college football. So even though I get a lot of phone calls from George and I don't know what the hell he's talking about, and I'm just shaking my head, I know he entertains all of you, and I appreciate George. He's great. All right, everyone. Next call-in show. I didn't promise that I would set up a weekly schedule for the call-in shows, but I said I would think about it and I would try, but it just seems like every time I think about everything that's going on in my life and things that I got to work out, and I've got 9 live streams: Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and of course Miami twice. That 9 live streams, and I try to get on here 2 or 3 times a week, that I just can't figure out. I know that we get a better crowd, and you guys are great about being flexible and just jumping on whenever I send out the notifications. But I would like to have a set time, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday night or something, that we do our call-in show. So just another thing to figure out here, the Voice of College Football. But we are looking for sponsors. That should be my number one priority. But I tend to work on things like all-time program rankings most of the time. So appreciate everybody being here again. Next up, Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern is our Iowa live show, and Nebraska live at 7 o'clock Eastern time. The next call-in show, again, just keep up those notifications to know when we will go live. But again, Tuesday, 5:30 is Iowa, 7 o'clock Eastern is Nebraska. And please support those shows. Those are just not live chats where we've got fans of those shows, but all of college football fans jump in for those. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all the contributions, for the comments, for everything, the phone calls. And please hit the like button on the way out, and we will see you soon. Next show, Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern, Iowa channel.